Welcome to the First Things First podcast. And first things first, we need you to subscribe and leave comments letting us know what you think of the show. We're listening. I'm Nick Wright, joined by two of my favorite people, Jenna Wolf, Chris Carter. Now, let's get the show started.
Well, hey there, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. Alongside the Hall of Famer Chris Carter and Nick Wright, I am Jenna Wolf. And guys, what a weekend we had. Let me just start before you jump in, because you had a day that we did not. I was falling asleep last night. I had the remote in my hand, and I must have just fallen asleep. And all of a sudden, Steph comes running into the bedroom, jumping on top of the bed, screaming something I didn't know. Either our house was on fire or the Vikings somehow came back and won that game. And I took B, and I was right, and it was an unbelievable finish. I am still coming down from that. But you, my friend, you were there in person.
Congratulations.
Oh, it was amazing.
I'm so happy.
It was a great weekend. Great football. What does Brumley say? Adult tackle football.
Yeah, adult tackle football.
You can see why football is as popular as it is. I mean, the finishes, the games, the unpredictability of it, and topped off by the Vikings last night and Stephon Diggs with an amazing. If you've seen a lot of stuff in sports history, but you've never been able to be there, and that's what this was for me. It was one of the greatest things. It's definitely one of the greatest things I've seen live happen. And it was like, did I witness that happening?
And you have been a good luck charm for your teams this year. You were at the Penn State-Ohio State game with a huge Ohio State comeback. Yeah. And then you were there on the sidelines pre-game. I know you're going to tell the stories later, but he might have coached up some of the star players in this game. I'm so happy you got to experience that at the game and then take a nice little trip back here a couple hours ago. So I'm so excited to talk to you about it this morning.
Literally, he landed 8 minutes ago. All right, so let's do that. No better place to start this morning than on the corner where, let's just say, I resided this entire season, Case Keenum. Vikings and Saints in the play that won it for Minnesota. 10 seconds, 61 yards to go, and Case Keenum did that. He somehow found Stephon Diggs on a play called 7 Heaven, turned into a 61-yard touchdown pass, escaped anyone saying otherwise into the end zone to give the Vikings the 29-24 win. Am I doing the excitement to this game justice? Here is Case Keenum after this game.
I can't even explain it, man. I mean, we were definitely in desperation mode. Just tried to give my guy a chance, and Diggs made a heck of a play. Made a lot of plays today. You got to give our guys credit, man. We fought to the very end, and that's special, man. That's one of the most special times of my life.
They count us out all the time. Nobody think we could do it. This game was over. I don't stop playing till the clock hits 0.
So, CZ, one of the things that we talked a lot about this week was how loud it was going to be there and how crazy the fans were going to be. Absolute pandemonium. I could only imagine you were there on the sideline when this thing ended. Just give us a little taste of the flavor, the atmosphere of what was going on there.
Well, the Vikings for a long, long time, even before they got U.S. Bank Stadium last season with the Metrodome, had always been known as one of the loudest stadiums in the NFL. A lot of that manufactured, not authentic noise, but sound, speakers, and the fan. We got great fans, but it was a smaller stadium. This is the first time that U.S. Bank was louder with just fans cheering without any assistance than the Metrodome. Like it was, and you could see at the beginning of the game, even the Saints who played in the old Superdome, now the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, it took them some time to get used to the noise. And that's why they helped the Vikings get off to that fast start. It energized the players. But at the end, the Vikings fans, they stayed true to form, and it really helped the team. They didn't give up. There was not a fan that left their seat, even though there was less than 30 seconds to go. Drew Brees drives the Saints down. They kick it. I mean, of course, that's the way the game's going to end. But as Stephon Diggs said, he's been taught to play until 0, and the Vikings needed every second of it. There's a huge storylines. I mean, you talk about Case Keenum, besides his mother and Jenna Wolf on believing in him.
And maybe 100-year-old Millie at the game who was on the broadcast. Yep. I don't know how many people believed Case could do that.
Yeah, I don't know how Millie survived getting to the game in that weather. I think it was like a high of 5.
I heard it was just
minus
brutal.
7 below, but it sets the stage not only for great championship weeks we have in the AFC and the NFC, but it also sets the stage that 3 weeks from yesterday, someone is going to get crowned Super Bowl champ.
Listen, we're going to spend a ton of today talking about the Vikings. I just want to I want to talk about the Saints on that final play for a moment. I feel so sick for Marcus Williams. I feel like I know what was happening. He sees the ball. If people don't know, like because the Vikings have no timeouts there, all you have to do is tackle them in bounds and the game is over. The Vikings are running everything to the sidelines, hoping to either set up, if they go shorter than that, a better shot Hail Mary. If they complete that and get to the sidelines, you've got a very makeable field goal. And it looked like it was setting up for the Vikings to potentially have their heart broken on a field goal at home again. Like that's when they were driving the ball down the field, that it was maybe going to be a 50-some yarder by Kai Forbath, who had just made a great kick a few minutes earlier. And I feel like Marcus Williams, who had the interception in this game, who had a great rookie season.
Yes.
Just panicked. I think he was worried about a pass interference call.
He definitely was.
Because pass interference, they stop the clock, and then they can just kick the field goal right there.
Right. This is the biggest problem. When they play two deep safeties in a Hail Mary situation, the safety is a lot wider than he would normally be. Typically, he would be inside the numbers running at an angle to the wide receiver. But because it's a Hail Mary or because they don't have timeouts, he's already wide. So it puts him in bad position on Diggs. But he should be going up and just try to knock the ball down.
Of course.
Now, when he made up his mind that he was going to try to hit him, he realized that he was there a little too early. And then he tried to pull off, because in that situation, you have to realize the defensive coaches are saying there's two things we don't want to happen, all right? Number one is pass interference, and number two is don't rough the quarterback to give him another play. So him being out of position, because in that situation, the safeties are a lot wider. He arrived at the play early, so he didn't want to pass interfere, and in doing that, he wiped out the other defender. I mean, it's like you can't make this kind of stuff up.
I get it. It's pro football. I know he's paid. I know he's at the top of his profession. He's supposed to make any play but the one he made. But, man, I just feel sick for him. Like, he had played so well this year and very well in this game, and in the one moment that, by the way, he will have to have an amazing career that includes winning a championship for this not to be the first paragraph of his football obituary, and that's brutal for him. And he was just trying to avoid the bad play, and instead he made the worst play possible. And Diggs, as you can see, Zimmer said after the game, he wanted Diggs in the moment to go out of bounds. I thought Diggs needed to go out of bounds because I just assumed there was another guy coming.
Right,
Man, that's all we were yelling was go out of bounds. But then I was like, we need a touchdown to cover.
Oh, but unfortunately, even though, yes, he will be sick to his stomach, and yes, this is what he will be remembered for unless he changes the course of his own history. I mean, this team should not have been down that. This Saints team should not have been down that many and had to play catch up, and they did. And you can point to a number of different ways and times where they could have gotten back into this game, but the Vikings just came out strong and fast. They upped the tempo. They did exactly what we said. They didn't give Case Keenum a chance to ease into his first playoff game. They said, get out there, throw the ball, and he was successful, and they were able to pile up points early.
Right. I think it might be known, too, because I had to think in real time. What if that play doesn't happen? Man, we're talking about Drew Brees, because to me, New Orleans was the most difficult offense and team to figure out here at the rest of the teams that were left. When I was looking at the Vikings, who's their worst matchup? That was with Drew Brees and the double running backs and their ability to be able to throw the ball down the field. But, man, we would have been talking about Michael Thomas and Drew Brees. Man, Drew Brees, and can he be the team that does this? Like, we would have been like, yeah, absolutely. Drew Brees might be the best throwing quarterback left in the tournament. Michael Thomas in the second half against Xavier Rhodes. I mean, he was beastly.
Against a first-team All-Pro.
I mean,
he won that battle repeatedly.
You're talking about the very seldom you're able to see good on good, number one on number one. And there's nothing Xavier Rhodes could do about it. But their ability and Sean Payton's play calling. Oh, my goodness.
How about a wide receiver pass on the biggest play of your season?
3rd and 1.
Biggest play of your season, 3rd and 1 in the playoffs. What are you feeling like in the stadium watching it develop? Because it was open. Like, it was a good play call. It's open. I don't know if it scores,
I felt the Vikings had gotten away with one. You know, because you're talking about huge momentum. They were having a hard time moving the ball on the Vikings all day. But in the third and fourth quarter, Sean Payton, he changed the tempo, and the Vikings were having a hard time like the Saints were in the first half. But this was one of those, moments right there, but tremendous call by Sean Payton. Man, it's a great football game, great chess match going back and forth.
Listen, you mentioned Michael Thomas. As an aside, Michael Thomas broke most of Odell's records for most production through first 2 years. We just don't know his name because doesn't talk, he's not flamboyant. He's just gone out there for 2 straight years in New Orleans, first 2 years in the league, out of
the Ohio State.
There you go. And been highly productive. He won a matchup with arguably the best corner in the league in the second half of that football game. You mentioned Drew Brees. Drew Brees had the worst first quarter of his life. 1 of 6, a pick, and a 0 quarterback rating.
0.
A 0 for the first quarter. Show the half-by-half breakdown of what Drew Brees was. First half, terrible. Second half, perfect. That is a nearly perfect half of football against maybe the best defense in football. At worst, the second best defense in football. So you're absolutely right. Those all would be storylines. But the Vikings, it was like, to me, watching it from afar, and this is why I was so happy for you, bro. The Vikings have had such, from before I was born, bad luck. Like people say luck doesn't, man, luck, maybe it all evens out in the end, but when you only have so many years of football and so many games in a season, it takes a long time for things to even out. And I thought when Forbath went out there for the kick, the first, what could have been the game-winning kick, I was thinking to myself, man, we said Friday, one of these games is going to be decided by a kicker. None of these games have been decided by a kicker yet. Please don't let him miss it. And he makes it. And then for the Saints to come back down and take the lead back, it's like this is how this is going to happen again. And instead, the Vikings become the first team in NFL playoff history to win on a walk-off regulation touchdown. And in one of the greatest finishes to a sporting event I've ever seen, bro.
All right, we're going to talk about this a lot more over the course of the next 3 hours. We want to hear more about what you saw at the game. Next up for the Vikings is the Philadelphia Eagles. CC's heading outside to do the rest of the show there. But at least his kepi will be warm, if you know what I'm talking about. Good stuff, CC. Coming up.
Heading your way, Philly.
The Steelers, they hosted the Jaguars. What were the odds of the Steelers scoring 42 points and losing this game? 40-1, 50-1, 1,800-1. Clearly, I don't know how gambling works. Nick Wright tweeted something along those lines.
Unbelievable.
After only scoring 10 points last weekend, Blake Bortles and the Jaguars put up 45 points to beat Pittsburgh. So what did they win? They won a shot at the Patriots. As for the Steelers, they're heading home. Here is Big Ben after the game.
Obviously, if you don't win the Super Bowl, you've underachieved, right? Because that's always our goal. It wasn't our day. It wasn't our year.
Those significant moments kind of define you, particularly this time of year, and they made those plays. We made our share of plays in the game, but not those plays in those moments.
I'm just happy to win. I have no animosity towards anybody that's ever said anything. I'm happy to be able to come here and do this with this team. Happy to be able to continue to play for another week. There's a lot of guys sitting at home on the couch watching this that I'm sure wishing they could play. I know in past years I've been. So to continue to have an opportunity to go play is pretty awesome.
We were confident coming in the game. I can't tell you why they were so confident, but that went out the door real quick.
All right, Nick, this was surprising to you. You didn't see this one coming.
I don't think there's anyone in the world that saw the Jags winning like this.
No.
We talked on Friday.
Even, just full disclosure, even Jacksonville, even Jalen Ramsey, even their thoughts of the game, they thought they would win, but it wouldn't be in this fashion. 17-14.
Correct. The total in this game that Vegas set was 41. That's for both teams. Each team hit the total by themselves. It was surprising the Jags won. It was shocking the fashion in which they won. I didn't see, of all the possible machinations, the Steelers scoring 40 points and losing this football game, I didn't see as one of the realistic possibilities. And listen, the Jags are going to talk after this game, and they've earned it. And Jalen Ramsey is one of my favorite young players in the league, and I love his quotes. But the Jags defense has almost nothing to hang its hat on in this game. They won this football game based on their offense. Going into this football game, there had been 10 quarterbacks in NFL history to throw 5 touchdowns in a playoff game. It dates back to Sid Luckman, your guy, Sid Luckman. Yeah. They were 10-0. They're now 10-1 because of Ben Roethlisberger. Big Ben became the first quarterback in playoff history to have a 400-yard, 5-touchdown game in a win or a loss, and they lost that football game. I'm going to say the name that I think was the difference in this football game. Ryan Shazier. I tried to disregard it. I tried to look past it, how different the Steelers' defense looked pre and post his injury. This guy was the defensive player of the year. They then lost him. And in this football game, what I saw was Blake Bortles throwing checkdowns to running backs and tight ends, an area that Ryan Shazier typically patrols, and the Steelers had no answer for it. Leonard Fournette gashing them, T.J. Yeldon gashing them. So I don't know how you can put this on the Steelers' offense. The Jags defense, the Jags offense just beat the brakes off the Steelers' defense, which was shocking to me.
There's a few things that were shocking. The overall physicality of Jacksonville, how much more physical they were in a January playoff game in Pittsburgh. Now, you just don't think those types of things are happening. Now, you have to give Jacksonville credit. Now, they have a great collection of talent. Now, they've been able to get around with Blake Bortles playing mediocre to poor football. He had 14 completions in this game. How are you going to score 40-something points and only have, so how you get to this ending is very improbable. But to me, you say Ryan Shazier, that was the biggest thing. Nick, I've been trying to tell you all year, there's a few things that do matter in football. Chemistry, locker room, morale, how people feel about each other. All right? When you have the night before the game, L. Bell tweeting something about playing New England again. You have his contract. Is he going to be franchised 2 or 3 days before the game? Mike Mitchell, when did he do it? When did he say? When he talk about playing New England? Like all these things I've been telling you all season. The national anthem, to come onto the field, that part. Ben, am I going to play?
You think all that had a factor?
Martavius Bryant. They were never a team together. Now, they're a very, very talented team, but when you get into battles like this, you need everyone to be focused on one goal, and that's advancing. It's not playing New England. New England could have got upset.
But, Cece, explain this to me, though, because aside from Mike Mitchell, all of those distraction things, whether it's Villanueva, Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, L. Bell, Martavis, all of them are offensive players. And the offense was awesome. The offense wasn't affected by any of that. The defense was why they lost that game.
They are a team, Nick, and the offense was bad to start the game.
Yes.
The interceptions and the fumbles. Yes. All right? That's how they got down. It wasn't the defense just got down. It was a collection, the offense, the special teams, and as a team. You heard the offensive lineman after the game commenting about his teammates. Yeah, so you think I made that up?
So does that fall on Mike Tomlin?
Of course it does. There's different families that they have different set of rules, and Mike is the head of the household. So who else you going to blame? You going to blame Ben Roethlisberger, A.B.? Because the players, they either, my former colleague Mike Ditka said, you're either teaching it or you're accepting it, all right? So pick whether corner you want to be on. Either Mike Tomlin is either teaching this or he's allowing it to happen. I've told you all along that was one of the things that's prevented the Steelers from reaching their potential in the last several years.
So I can take that. I can't speak to that. I will take your word for it because you know what you're talking about. What I can speak to on Mike Tomlin is some of his game management decisions late in this football game were indefensibly bad. You go for it. You have 2 timeouts and the 2-minute warning. Down 7. And you go onside instead of kicking away. What you're saying right there is we believe we have a better chance of getting the onside kick than forcing a 3-and-out. After that, you have a 1st and goal from the 5 with 40 seconds left, and you somehow never get back to the onside kick ability because you take so much time.
Yeah, because you're consumed about New England. All right? Like they tell you in the street, keep my name out your mouth. Okay. Pittsburgh, keep New England's name out your mouth. All right? Don't want to hear it.
All right. Let's take a break. Again, we will talk about this more. But coming up, how embarrassed should the Falcons be after scoring just 10 points?
Anybody know the Vikings won?
What's next for the Eagles? knows?
Anybody?
Who knows? Might be the Vikings.
Oh, we're coming that way, Philadelphia.
All right, moving on to the AFC title game. Oh, Patriots hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's play some compare and contrast. One team has been in this game every year since 2011, won 5 Super Bowls with their current quarterback and has a Hall of Fame head coach. The other team, guaranteed victory. Well, Jalen Ramsey did anyway. Here's Tom Brady addressing Ramsey's comments.
You know, I think what I've learned over a long time is it's how you play and it's not what you say. And I think, you know, everyone has different ways of handling things. Coaches do, players do. We do what works for us. Those are other players that work for them. You know, the game's going to be decided by who plays the best, not who hypes the best or speaks the best. Or, you know, he's a really good player. I've watched a ton of film on him. He's got a lot of strengths. And, you know, he's obviously very confident. That's reflected in how he plays. So, you know, I'm more concerned about how he plays as opposed to what he says.
And that has always been the Patriot way, play, don't say. But let's talk about how Tom Brady and his Patriots are going to attack this very, very good Jaguars defense, CC.
It's going to be interesting what they do. Now, I think that A.J. Bouye and Jalen Ramsey will get the ultimate respect by Bill Belichick. So what they'll try to do, they'll try to line up in a lot of bunch formations or clusters where they can set a lot of picks. They're going to be expecting a lot of man-to-man. They know they have the athleticism. If these corners played for New England, man, that's all New England would play because they realize how hard it is for quarterbacks to throw. When you're in zone coverage, guys are like this in space. The man-to-man, there's very little space, and the DB and the wide receiver, it frustrates quarterback, and they don't want to release the ball. So he's going to respect that. Watch Rob Gronkowski try to be the dominant force in the middle because you're better off attacking Jacksonville safeties than you are their corners. And watch the running backs. They will try to get them in space because also they don't want to put that offensive line in the dilemma of dropping back 45 times and having to block Calais Campbell and those other vicious defenders that Jacksonville can send at you. Also in the back of their mind, New England knows that Blake Bortles is the quarterback. All right, so Tom, he will not force a turnover. He knows that they can punt the ball. He's going to have plenty of time, so he won't be rushed. It won't be like Pittsburgh. If he was playing Pittsburgh, Ben Roethlisberger, the triplets, it's a different set of pressure because they can put a lot of points on you. So Tom will be very, very patient. Gronk and the running backs, I believe, will be the featured part of this offense, and I wouldn't be surprised if they negated the running game, New England. I believe the weather's going to be unseasonably a little bit warm, and I believe they're going to throw the ball more than we ever thought going into this game.
All right, before I get to my thoughts on it, it is something we touched on yesterday, but I want to reiterate it today, get your opinion out there on this, because the general conventional wisdom, I know you tell me, stop listening to all these podcasts, stop doing all that.
No, listen to me.
Okay, right.
Stop listening
but the
to them.
general, a lot of the commentary surrounding this game is the Jags are going to put Jalen Ramsey on Gronk. Their best defensive back on the Patriots' best weapon. Jalen's also a big corner. He's 6'1". He's strong. That's their best chance. That was something you told me Monday morning off the air. Throw it away. They can't do that continually throughout the game. Tell them, why can't you just say Jalen, Gronk, one-on-one, Jalen be better?
Because Jalen is more important to the defense playing the cornerback spot that he plays, because then they can play zone or play man, and you don't know that. If you line him up on Gronk and play man-to-man, 50, 60 plays, Tom Brady knows you're in man-to-man. So it's easier to set a pick on him. It's also easier to use Gronk as a decoy because you know exactly what they're doing. And more importantly than Jalen being on Gronk, you know everyone else is in man-to-man. So Tom can pick out the weakest link. It could be a linebacker. It could be a safety. It could be someone else that he would pick on deliberately because you've given him too much information.
And the other thing you had mentioned was if they were to do that, the Pats would just run the ball repeatedly. That you'd be
Gronk would knock him off the field because he would have to line up on his head if he's guarding a man-to-man, and Gronk would come off and run block him, and like he blocked the guy in Indianapolis where he threw him out the club.
Right, yeah.
That's what he would be doing to Jalen Ramsey a whole bunch in the game.
One of the things we talked about the last couple of weeks with this Patriots team is they want to get out to a fast start, get out there, maybe no huddle, whatever it is. But you're saying That's not as important this time. It is not absolutely necessary for them to get out and do that. They could slow the game down from the start.
I mean, as a team, no one collectively is connected as much as the offense, the defense, and the special teams. So their offensive players, they know what they're capability of, even though they're worried about their game plan, Jacksonville's defense, but they've been informed of who's on the other side.
Right.
And it's not to throw shade at Blake Bortles. If it was someone else that didn't have an offense that ran through their quarterback and ran through their tailback, they would do the same thing. So they'll be in sync, realizing it's about field position, it's about getting a lead, it's about forcing Jacksonville to throw the football, and it's about, for New England, getting chunks of yardage on first down. So they stay out of second and long and third and long situations.
The Jags defense, let's put a bow on it with this, is coming off its 2 most productive games of the year as far as a quarterback pressure standpoint. You might say they just led 42 points. I get that. The only 2 games all year, the only 2 games in the defense in the playoffs, I should say, where you had 20-plus pressures. It was the Jags in round 1 and the Jags last week. So that Jags front is playing very, very well right now. They are going to have to play the best game they have ever played in order to beat the New England Patriots.
All right.
Cece's got a meeting.
Yeah, you got to run.
Secret meeting with the NFL.
I don't know if is it a secret meeting?
No, it's just a meeting with the NFL.
It was secret.
Yeah.
Welcome back to First Things First. Joining us now is Chris Canty.
What up, man?
Never a dull moment on the show. Not even
and sometimes
on
the commercial breaks are as exciting as these segments themselves. We will not get into that.
True story.
Let's talk about some football. There are 305,000 people who live in the city of Pittsburgh.
And all of them drink bone broth.
Oh, who brought that up? Certainly not I, said the fly. Of those 305,000, CC, Nick, and Chris Canty, I have no idea how many wanted Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin fired. Didn't matter because the Steelers went in a different direction, letting go of the offensive coordinator, Todd Haley, instead. Haley had served in the role for the past 6 seasons, but had a friction-filled relationship with quarterback Ben Roethlisberger. Chris Canty, how much pressure is on Roethlisberger now that Haley is gone?
I don't know if there's too much pressure on Roethlisberger because you're talking about a Super Bowl winning quarterback in, I guess, the twilight of his career. No matter how he performs over the next couple of seasons, it's not like the Pittsburgh Steelers organization is going to push Ben Roethlisberger out.
Right.
Now, that being said, I don't think it was Todd Haley's fault that this team struggled and didn't get past the Jacksonville Jaguars in the divisional round because they were able to score points. It's just the defensive side of the ball couldn't stop the Jacksonville Jaguars offense from scoring points. So when you look at that, if you want to criticize anyone, you got to criticize Keith Butler, the defensive coordinator. He hasn't had any answers in terms of how his defense can be productive since they've been missing Ryan Shazier out of the lineup. That inside linebacker position is a sore spot for the Steelers right now. I don't know what they do this offseason, but they got to address it, whether it's free agency or the draft, because I don't think you can rely on Ryan Shazier coming back healthy next year.
And given this was the year of injuries. And that's all we talked about was teams either not been able to replace with Aaron Rodgers or teams that were able to find people like Case Keenum. So we shouldn't excuse, because that's part of the game. Ryan Shazier, they should have some type of answer for him on that defense, which would make Todd Haley the scapegoat for this, what was going on in Pittsburgh.
Is that what it was? Because you said we should have been talking about the defense. So why was Todd Haley fired then?
Well, because he didn't have a great relationship with Ben Roethlisberger. There's always been friction ever since he arrived there 6 years ago. And say what you will, Ben Roethlisberger was the guy that threw him under the bus when he talked about that 4th and 1, and he said, well, why didn't your quarterback sneak it? And Roethlisberger had no answer for the media, and he said, I like quarterback sneaks. I don't know why that wasn't a call. Like, that's directly a shot at Todd Haley. Okay. But if you look at the numbers, since Todd Haley got there, I mean, the first 2 years were a little rough because there was a little bit of a learning curve in installing his offense.
They're unbelievable.
But since then, yards ranked per game in the NFL. After his 3rd year, it was number 2 offense in yards, number 7 offense in points. His 4th year, number 3 offense in yards, number 4 offense in points. His 5th year, 7th in yards, 10th in points. And last year's 3rd in yards and 8th in points. Todd Haley is not the problem with the Pittsburgh Steelers offense.
Go ahead, Cece.
And last year it started, just some of it, just to paint a picture for the public. During the draft, they drafted Juju Smith-Schuster. USC, 2nd round, right?
Yep.
Immediately, he gets greeted to one of the great franchises by teammates tweeting that he's been drafted to replace one of the other wide receivers. So this is not Todd Haley's fault. So on draft day, a guy ended up having a remarkable year in Juju Schuster. He's been by Martavius Bryant tweeting that, oh, man, this guy's here to replace one of the other receivers. So there's been a lot of stuff going on in Pittsburgh for a long time. So Todd Haley has had to put up with it. He had to put up with L. Bell's holdout. He had to put up with the Facebook with Antonio Brown last year. He had to put up with Martavius being suspended for a long period of time. So for him to get this type of productivity with all these distractions, like, he has done a great job.
And he's had to put up with, just in the last 15 months, more than a half dozen instances of his quarterback going out of his way to either call out the head coach or the offensive coordinator. Speak for Yourself did a great job of outlining all this on the network the other day. I just want to go through it. So in the last 15 months, Ben Roethlisberger has said, our practices are too physical. We're an undisciplined team. We were outcoached in a playoff game. My coach told me to defer in overtime. That was this year against the Bears. Nobody even asked him about it. He just went out and said it. We should focus on Cincinnati, not New England. I wanted to spike the football. I wasn't allowed to. I wanted to sneak the football. I wasn't allowed to. That's Ben Roethlisberger going out of his way to call out either Todd Haley or Mike Tomlin. And they have to deal with it because he is a Super Bowl champion, because he is one of the 5 or 6 best quarterbacks in football. He never got along with Todd. It was a working relationship and nothing more. And he never, now Todd has had friction in a lot of relationships. He can be a tough guy to get along with, but one of the greatest receivers ever, Larry Fitzgerald, will say it's the best coach I've ever had. Some of the guys in Kansas City, Keyshawn Johnson liked him, not in Kansas City, but earlier
Dallas, with the Jets.
With the Jets. And so players can warm up to him. Roethlisberger never wanted to warm up to him. His contract was coming up, and Roethlisberger said, we want continuity, but didn't want the offensive coordinator back, which is why the quarterback's coach, Roethlisberger's guy, is going to become the offensive coordinator. So Big Ben has brought a lot of this onto himself and onto the franchise. So to answer the question, how much pressure is on Ben Roethlisberger? Hey, man, remember when Bill Parcells said, you want me to cook, but you got to let me shop for the groceries? Well, Big Ben, you want to pick the offensive coordinator, essentially. So, okay, you mentioned top 10 each of the last 4 years in yards and points. You better stay there.
Yeah, I don't believe Ben picked the offensive coordinator. It's easy to make that type of distinction because this goes back before Todd Haley. Who was offense coordinator before Todd Haley got there?
Bruce Arians.
Bruce Arians. How did that end? It ended the same way. So this is not new. And I'm just going to tell you, I know the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Ben's not going to be there enough that they would give Ben the ability. I believe that the quarterback coach is the most competent to be able to take over. So I wouldn't like to put that out there, that this is Ben's selection as far as the offensive coordinator. Because I know Mike Tomlin and Pittsburgh and their front office and how they've gotten coaches. They don't let the players have any type of input in that. So I believe they will get the right person. They've had the right person. They had Bruce Arians. He went on to Indianapolis and then on to a head coaching job in Arizona, but it came from what he created in Pittsburgh.
Well, CeCe, you mentioned they're not going to let the coaches pick the guys. Would you agree, though? I'm sorry, the players pick the coaches. My mistake. Would you agree, though, that if Roethlisberger had a better relationship with Haley would still be there? Because the production was clearly there.
Well, I just believe there's more things going on in that locker room than we know.
But isn't that
And I don't like to draw conclusions that I can't prove.
Okay.
Todd Haley's responsibility to make sure the offense runs, that plays are called, that Ben Roethlisberger plays great. All the tweeting, the distractions, the Facebook, the talking about the contracts, that falls under Mike Tomlin's umbrella. That's not up for Todd Haley. Offensive coordinators aren't in charge of disciplining the locker room. I would say that's clearly under Mike Tomlin's scope of responsibility. That being said, this is a team that had, 13 wins? Ben Roethlisberger played great, including that last game. He had almost 500 yards or something. So shy of the relationship between Ben Roethlisberger and Todd Haley, what was the reasoning for them not renewing his contract?
Well, I can only point to the friction between Big Ben and Todd Haley. I can't point to anything else definitively. Now, you did have the distraction that Todd Haley got into an altercation at a bar in Pittsburgh a few weeks ago before the start of the playoffs, but I don't think that had any influence in terms of the decision that was made by the organization. Now, in terms of Big Ben having say on who the next offensive coordinator is, I don't think that he's handpicking the quarterback's coach to be the next OC, because realistically, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, How many years do you have of Ben Roethlisberger left? You're talking about 2 or 3 seasons before you got to think about trying to get somebody else in there to be your starting quarterback. So this is the twilight of his career. Right. Are you still trying to get a championship? Yeah, because you have Antonio Brown, one of the best wide receivers, if not the best wide receiver in the National Football League. You got Lev Bell, the best running back in the National Football League, one of the best offensive lines in place in the National Football League. You want to try to take advantage of that while you still have it. But ultimately, I'm not making decisions for the foreseeable future just based on what Ben Roethlisberger wants.
And a lot of times you overreact. People will say, yes, because they got stopped on a 4th and 1, a quarterback sneak would have been better. But pitching the ball to Le'Veon Bell on a toss sweep on 4th and 1 is not a worse option than Ben Roethlisberger going a quarterback sneak. He is a great football player. It was not blocked well. That's the reason why they didn't get it. And for them to be able just to say, oh, the question is, is he under more pressure? Man, Ben has been through some tremendous scandals in Pittsburgh, and they have supported him. Off the field, the scandal, as far as the sexual harassment, they supported him. Riding a motorcycle without a helmet, they supported him. And a number of other things, they have supported him. So as far as is there pressure on Ben Roethlisberger? No, Ben is a made man in Pittsburgh.
The new movie 12 Strong, starring, are you coughing? Wow.
I'm looking forward to it. You bring some tickets?
Chris Hemsworth and Rob Riggle. And look who's joining us now. One Rob Riggle, who I didn't realize you were actually an active member of the Marine Corps at one point.
I did 23 years in the Marine Corps.
So just a small stint. You just wanted to get a little taste of it. Is that what drew you to this movie or to wanting to jump on board this project?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, but also the story is one of the most fascinating stories in military history. If you look into it, the book Horse Soldiers is what the movie's based on, but it was a classified story for a long time. Now it's been declassified, and finally, 17 years later, they're getting to tell their story. The interesting thing, I'll try to give you the Reader's Digest version. So when I went over, this story takes place in October of 2001. I went over and joined this unit in November of 2001. And I worked for Lieutenant Colonel Max Bowers, who I am now playing in the movie. So I'm playing my old boss in the movie.
Get out of here.
Yeah,
so if people people should see the movie, but just if people don't know the story, I mean, the tagline is they watched in terror on September 11th, they volunteered to fight on September 12th. But since you experienced it firsthand and made the movie, can you just give us a little version of like what was actually going on here, what these guys were trained or asked to do in this circumstance?
Well, basically what happened is right after 9/11, we were looking to figure out, one, who did it, and how we were going to respond to it. When we finally, we figured out obviously pretty quickly that it was Al Qaeda, and then that they were being harbored and protected by the Taliban in Afghanistan. So the Northern Alliance, who was already in Afghanistan and currently fighting the Taliban, their leader Mossad was assassinated on September 9th. As payment to the Taliban. So the Al Qaeda assassinated this guy on September 9th to, as payback to the Taliban so they could stay in Afghanistan. And it really shook the Northern Alliance because he was the thing holding it together. Then they attacked us on the 11th, and then we responded. We went in, these 12 Special Forces soldiers went in, joined the Northern Alliance, and took the fight to the Taliban and Al Qaeda. They were the first ones in, first ones hooking and jabbing in October.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Great story.
We're going to make a hard turn to football just because there's no
natural segue.
It's just an easy transition to go from one to the other. And we've been talking obviously about the championship games all week, and now we're getting ready. Let's start with the NFC. 2 big-time quarterbacks going up against each other with tons of experience in this one, head-to-head. How do you see this battle between?
They're in the same class, weren't they? The class of whatever the.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, they came in the league at the same time. Is what
they
I'm
did.
saying.
So they have history.
So it's kind of cool. I mean, it worked out. It's amazing how things work out. You just never know how things are going to work out.
It's adorable. It's adorable. Case Keenum and Nick Foles. That sort of just falls off the tongue.
Sure.
Tell me about this little matchup between the two. What do you think?
Look, I think it's going to be awesome. I think Minnesota, they had such an unbelievable high. I hope they emotionally have calmed down and got their focus back. And because when you go through something like that, I think it takes a while to regroup a little bit, maybe mentally, emotionally, all that stuff. And don't underestimate the Eagles. Like look, everybody's complaining about Foles or whatever. The Falcons were red hot, in my opinion, red hot, and they shut them down. So that Eagles defense is real, and put it all together, I think we're going to have a great game.
You're a huge football fan. You've been involved with Fox for a long time, and the big show on Sunday. Where were you, and what was your reaction to the Minneapolis Miracle?
I was in my hotel room, and I was really bummed out that I was alone, because I was screaming and yelling, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So I wanted someone there to acknowledge what had just happened. And
so you ordered room service, right?
Yeah, so I got the waiter.
Come here, guys.
Man. But I did. I wanted to acknowledge it. So I did what everybody in this world does. I tweeted out like, "Oh my God, Vikings!" I think is what I tweeted, and that was it. But and then I called my son. He's back home, so I called him and I was like, "Did you see? Did you see?"
Yeah.
He didn't, so I felt bad because he was like, "No, I was shooting hoops."
That story dropped off a little bit.
Yeah.
You mentioned the emotional high. So the one thing that's really interesting about this game, so CeCe was able. He was at the game. He was able to be in the locker room right after. And CeCe's described that while in the locker room, right, celebration amidst. Once Mike Zimmer acknowledges the team, acknowledges the moment, he started going down the schedule for Monday. Like, listen, practice squad guys, you show up at 7:30. Yeah. These guys, you show up at 8, just to try to refocus everyone.
Yeah, definitely refocus, level set. Everyone, do you guys realize we just witnessed a miracle? That's what he said. They said the Lord's Prayer, practice squad squares, 8 o'clock, weightlifting, 8:30, team meeting at 9.
Good.
So the chance of recovering.
I think that's the absolute right thing to do. I think that's the smartest thing you can do. You come off an emotional high like that, it is so hard to reset and regroup and refocus. And I think that's right. You have to acknowledge it. You can't blow it off. Celebrate it, acknowledge it, but then, you got to get your head screwed back on.
On the other side of the bracket, there's one team I think everyone expected to be there in the Pats. Then another team, not a lot of people expected to be there in the Jags. I think everyone was looking forward to Pats Steelers 2. The Jags threw that off in a style that I don't think anyone saw coming, winning the game 45-42. A lot of ways the Jags could win that game, allowing the Steelers.
The over-under was 42.
Right. Both teams hit the over by themselves, essentially. It was, right. It was so. What up, Steve?
He's not the person to remind what the over was. Okay? I'm just going to tell you.
I'm not yet over.
One of Kansas City's finest.
Yeah, the fact that I bet the under in a game where both teams individually hit the over. Wasn't my finest gambling moment in a year of bad gambling moments. But that's neither here nor there, CC. Right. So, but now we have what is a really interesting matchup because you have the best defense in football against the best team of the last 20 years, the dynasty in the NFL. People are going to focus on the Brady and Bortles part of it. I'm really excited. We've talked about see the Pats offense match up with the Jags defense. Curious your thoughts on it.
I don't know. Really, this one to me, by all accounts, put it on paper, take it to a bar discussion, take it anywhere around, everybody's going to say Pats, 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 because they are this juggernaut of football power. Let's face it, they are. If they get into this, that's what Brady's going to play in his 8th Super Bowl. That's crazy.
Yes.
That's just insanity. So, you do have to acknowledge the dynasty and the powerhouse that the Pats have been. But the Jaguars didn't just walk into this. They didn't just accidentally show up to the AFC Championship. They're there for a reason. And look, as a football fan who doesn't have a dog in that fight, I just want a good game. And I think we're going to get one. I
know you didn't want to talk about the quarterbacks. I do. The law firm, obviously, of Keenum, Bortles, and Foles, they were zygotes, basically, when Tom Brady started playing football. We've been talking this whole season how long this guy has and what he could do. And is this it? Or can he, like he wants to play for another 45 years? What do you think about Tom Brady's longevity in this?
He apparently can do whatever he wants.
Easily, right?
Yeah. Every time I start to, because I was at the Super Bowl last year, and I saw that miracle happen, right? And I was like, if he doesn't walk out at 40 on top with the greatest game ever played, I think that would be silly.
Yeah.
But then he came back, and I was like, okay. And then I said, I think that was a mistake because clearly they probably won't even make the playoffs. Well, now he's playing the AFC Championship game, and he's got a pretty good shot at making the Super Bowl again. So what do I know? I clearly know nothing, and he can do whatever he wants.
Rob, Blake Bortles, you tell a bunch of jokes. Blake Bortles is the punchline of a lot of jokes in the National Football. Is this the game that he removes that title as the punchline of the NFL?
It could be, yeah. I mean, if he shows up and does everything he's supposed to.
You're crying about it.
I am. It's making me emotional. This could be Bortles' big moment.
This is it.
That's my quarterback.
I'm waiting so long.
Is Rob still emotional like I am that somehow the Kansas City Chiefs won?
These are Chiefs tears.
I mean,
they haven't stopped. They haven't
we've
stopped.
Been suffering with this
so
guy.
People don't
too?
know Rob's from the same place I am. He's from
That's
Kansas
right.
City. He grew up on the Kansas side of the state. I grew up on the Missouri side of the state. But regardless,
yeah.
Did you believe in them this? Because I got fooled again.
Well, those first 5 games, I was pretty hard to live with and be around. Then, of course, I was brought back to earth. And then we got hot again, and I thought, this is great. We're peaking at the right time. You know, here we go.
Hey.
And then the first half of the playoff game, it felt like that.
I don't know what it is. Arrowhead is such an advantage, but we haven't won a playoff game at Arrowhead since Montana was our quarterback.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. He's really upset about it.
I mean, it's just no. So I just
they're killing me, man.
That's the real devastation of it all, because you felt like they felt like the AFC. There were some weak points this year.
I always. That's part of being a fan. That's fandom. I am always for the Chiefs. I'm always on board with the Chiefs. Their fate is my fate. I have to live with it. But yeah, they're killing me.
I try to be the resident funny person on this show. Otherwise, things get just a little serious. So I very much appreciate and love what you do every Sunday. Before we get back.
But what if she says next is not funny? Don't be concerned.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not trying to be funny. When one doesn't try to be funny, one is funny or one is not funny.
It's just a
natural
you
thing.
And Rob share.
How much do you enjoy the stuff that you get to do on Sundays? We love watching you.
I thank you, and I appreciate that. I love to do it. It's a kind of a narrow lane. I got about a minute 45.
Maybe.
Sometimes.
Hey,
and sometimes if it's a one-game thing, like the Thanksgiving, I got 30 seconds.
Right.
And I got to make my picks, and I got to be G-rated. Not even PG, G-rated.
They're really hamstringing you there.
And it's the NFL, so I don't want to upset them.
Okay. Right.
Otherwise, Fox gets slapped, and then Fox slaps me.
Yep.
Right. So, it's a narrow lane with which to do comedy, and every week we got to come up with a sketch, So we try our best. Yeah.
Do you have one this year that you think back on that you're like, that's the favorite thing we've done?
Yeah, we do song parodies a lot.
Yeah.
And we did a Thanksgiving one that was kind of fun, I thought.
They did a song parody without you at the upfronts this year that involved Terry and Howie rapping.
Yes.
You would have been very, very much appreciated.
I think mercifully I was filming a movie.
I was just going to say, you're probably lucky and happy that you weren't there. Welcome back to First Things First. If it weren't for the unreal ending to the Vikings-Saints game, the play we might all still be talking about would be that catch right there, made by Adam Thielen. And would you look at this? Who got up early to join us this morning on our show? Adam Thielen. Adam!
Yes.
Applause all around. First of all, congratulations. Thank you so much for being with us on the show this morning. How you feeling today?
Pretty good. I can't complain. Obviously we're ready to get back to work, and we're sick of seeing the Minnesota Miracle. We're ready to get back to Philadelphia.
Well, great news, because we're going to talk about it for yet a little bit longer. So our guy CC was at the game. He was on the field. He came back. He described to us in vivid detail what was going on. What he wasn't was in uniform in that play when that actually happened. So if you would just enlighten us one more time, at least. What was your reaction being on the field and watching that all unfold?
Well, I couldn't move. I couldn't believe it. I was in shock. I was pretty much in the Saints bench at the time, so they couldn't move. I couldn't move, and it was unbelievable. I still can't even really believe it, but I'm ready to get back on the field again.
So I'm going to follow up with one more about that. When you see it happen, or when the play's drawn up, I imagine it's catch it quick, get out of bounds, try to get a field goal. Did you think there was any chance at a touchdown on that play when you guys came out of the huddle?
No, not when we were coming out of the huddle. Case told us before we lined up, he said, hey, somebody's going to get a chance here. I'm going to give somebody a chance and make a play and get out of bounds. And when I saw the ball in the air, though, was when I really, felt like we had a chance to actually score because there was nobody behind Diggs, and the way that the safety missed him, I was just hoping he stayed in bounds and stayed on his feet to score, because it was pretty unbelievable. There was nobody behind him to have that guy's back.
The one thing that we felt a little bit bad about as fans watching the game was that we weren't in the locker room to just get a sense of what that celebration felt like. So can you just describe the moments afterwards when you all finally got in there, when the euphoria was just starting to settle in and kind of whirl its way up?
Yeah, I mean, to put it in perspective, I guess, all the work we put in since OTAs, training camp, all the practices through the season, all the games in the season to actually have this opportunity. I think it all kind of just came out in the locker room like, wow, like, the work is paying off. The GMs, the coaches, everybody's hugging each other, high-fiving, and just saying what just happened, because it all happened so fast. We really just kind of were in shock still, like I said before. But, yeah, everybody just the emotions came out. And now to have this opportunity this week, we really got to take advantage of it, because what happened last week doesn't mean anything if we don't take care of business this week.
After looking at the tape, I know Philadelphia, they're very, very impressive, Adam, from a defensive standpoint. They got a rotation, 7 defensive linemen going out. They play some man-to-man coverage on the outside, also play some zone. What do you look for as far as this matchup with this Vikings offense going against this very, very good Philadelphia Eagles defense?
Yeah, well, obviously, for me, I really focus in on the secondary. And the one thing that pops out on tape with this secondary is there's not a whole lot of times that receivers are catching the ball in space. There's a lot of contested catches, which is a lot of credit to them. It means that they're covering guys extremely well. They're extremely well coached. They're in the right spots because, like I said, there's very few times I've seen on film where guys are catching it wide open and being able to run after the catch and things like that. So we're gonna have to really come with a really good game plan and making sure that we're doing the little things to gain separation.
Adam, you mentioned contested catches, that there's not a lot of wide open windows. One thing you and your counterpart, Stephon Diggs, have been near the top of the NFL this year is those contested catches. Now, those don't happen if the quarterback throwing the ball doesn't trust you guys to make those plays. How important for your guys' success has been the symbiosis, if you will, between Case trusting you guys to go up and making a play and you guys not letting him down by going up and completing those plays?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it means a lot for Case to have trust in us, and I think that starts with practice. I think Diggs and I and all of us as receivers, skill position guys, we kind of pride ourselves on making those plays in practice so we can gain that trust in a game. And it's kind of funny because in the game, actually, Case came up to me after one of the third down catches I had, and he said, "Man, I didn't even see you. I just trusted you were going to get open," which is pretty cool as a receiver to hear, because that's what you want. You want to be given that opportunity. Every time you run a route, you run it to get open, and you want the ball in your hands. So when the quarterback has trust like that, when he can't even see you and he's throwing the ball and expecting you to make a play, it's pretty cool.
Adam, I would imagine, and I've covered Super Bowl week many times, or the conference titles weeks, and I know that the question you probably get asked more than anything is about Case Keenum, and there's a lot of media surrounding, a lot of articles and whatnot surrounding Case Keenum and Nick Foles in this one. So I have to ask you this. Not many people were on the Case Keenum bandwagon like you guys were as a team early on in the season. And you guys were out there saying, this is our guy, this is our guy. And he did nothing but go in there and help you guys win week to week. He has got you into the NFC Championship game right now. And I just have to ask how impressed you were with the way Case Keenum played in that playoff game last week and what you're looking forward to out of him this week.
Yeah, I think every week, me personally and as a team, I think we're more impressed each week. It's it's impressive what he's been able to do this season, stepping in for Sam and trying to be a leader and taking over this offense. And we're going to need him to keep doing those things, which we can completely trust him to do that because of the way he prepares. I mean, there's nobody. I know it's cliche to say about a quarterback that he's the first one in here and the last one out, and he prepares like nobody else, but it's the truth. This guy, I've never seen somebody memorize a game plan before the week even started, and it's just really impressive. And those are the things that make him successful. People think that we just show up on Sundays and start slinging the ball around, but they don't really see what he does throughout the week.
So you're impressed with Case as far as that you don't see that type of understanding and volume of the offense. Has that helped you guys from the offensive coordinator standpoint? He's seen how Case has played. He's got confidence in Case, and he has the whole volume of offense. All coordinators say, oh, we're going with the backup. We're going to run the same offense. But the Vikings actually are running the whole volume of offense based on what you're telling us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's allowed Coach Shermer to really do what he does. I think sometimes, as coordinators, they can get kind of pigeonholed and into certain things with having to do play a backup and things like that. But like I said, Case has done such a good job of just kind of making this offense his own. And I think he said that early on this season. He said, this is my offense now, and I'm going to make it my own and try to get it to the point where I can start making checks at the line, and the coaches trust me to really open it up. And like I said, that only helps the offensive coordinator and us as players, because that gives us the ability to do a lot of things and make a lot of things look the same, and be able to disguise things.
This was your first career divisional round playoff game. You've got Chris Carter, John Randall, a bunch of other all-time Vikings greats on the sidelines. Before the game, you can really feel the importance of it. Can you tell us what that was like pregame? And if you would, because CC, he won't tell me, what did he say to you after the game? Spill it. I'll mute his mic. Just tell us both those things, please.
No, it was awesome, obviously, to see CC before the game, and after the game, it was a cool moment. Got to get a picture with my guy, and he just said he was proud of us, and us as receivers, even Diggs, not being from Minnesota, he looked up to him and the plays that he was able to make, and those are the guys that made us want to play this game and play at a high level. So it was really cool to see all those guys there, the alumni, the fans, the atmosphere that place had was just unbelievable. And everything leading up to that week with I think there was every middle school and elementary school did a Skol chant and sent it to us. So we felt the energy from around Minnesota, that's for sure.
Adam, no extra pressure, but it's very, very rare that we hear of a story like yours. No scholarship opportunities, not invited to the combine. As a little boy, you had a lot of dreams, but a lot of those dreams included playing for the team that potentially you get a chance to go to the Super Bowl. Adam, be honest with me. What would it personally mean for you? So many people have given up on you. People said you were too small. You shouldn't play offense. All those things. To be able 60 minutes from making the Vikings potentially get the team to a point where they've never ever won the Super Bowl before. Inside as a little kid, what's it feel like?
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable to think about that. I think for me, honestly, just all the work I put in, all the work that this team has put in, you look back to how long ago OTAs seems and training camp and things like that. And like I said, just all that work that you put in, that's what makes it even more special, and what makes it even more, even makes it a bigger game, because you don't put all that work in, you don't do all those things, you don't go through high school and try to get into college and try to make it in the NFL. You don't do all those things to not want to win a Super Bowl. So, that's the main goal. That's the thing you always look for. Every season you start the new season, and that's what you want to do. So obviously we know this is a big game and something that we've been working for and striving for a long time. So this opportunity doesn't come very often either. So we're going to try to make sure that we take advantage of that.
Well, Adam, we know you do still have more work to be done. It is 7:30 a.m. where you are. You have a full day and a couple more days until this game. We wish you the best of luck, and we thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Thank you so much, Adam. Good luck, man.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
This time Monday morning, we're going to know who's in the Super Bowl.
Yes, we will.
All year long, we've talked about it.
Yes.
It's our last show we do without knowing it. I'm so excited.
This is what we look like without having Super Bowl knowledge.
Exactly right. And this is what Chris looks like after being poisoned by his co-host.
Oh, right. Okay.
We will get to that at some point in these 3 hours.
Is he
Jenna
here?
Wolf offers you candy or food product, make sure you check out the details, country of origin, and expiration date.
Sometimes your intelligence backfires, okay?
This isn't one of them.
He's here and he's alive. You are here and you alive. And really, at the end of the day, when the bar is that low, that's all that matters.
My stomach hurts like Tom Brady's hand.
Speaking of the hand of Tom Brady, if you are the Patriots quarterback and you bang your hand in practice days before the AFC title game, it's not that big a deal. If you're limited in practice on Wednesday as a result, kind of a big deal if you miss practice Thursday and the line starts to move towards Jacksonville's favor. More of a big deal. Good thing they've got a backup quarterback in case of emergency. Oh, wait, hold on a second. CeCe, should we be concerned now that Tom Brady has missed practice Thursday and was limited on Wednesday?
I'm a big practice guy.
Yeah.
And anytime that I see a guy's practicing, sometimes it's warranted. Sometimes the coach is going to give a player a certain time. There's bumps and bruises, especially on Wednesday. Coaches are a little more lenient. Training staff is a little more lenient. But when we get to this time of the year, because timing is so crucial, and being with your teammates on the field, all guys who can practice, they practice as much as their body allows them to. Tom Brady is a workout fanatic. He loves watching film. He loves being on the practice field with his teammates. So it's easier for me to jump to a conclusion with Tom because I've seen this. Other guys, I wouldn't be as concerned about. But Tom, I know he wants to get every snap. Tom even wants to take the kneel down at the end of game. So I know it's very important. If he gets dinged on a Wednesday practice and then he misses part or most of the Thursday practice, of course I'm going to be concerned because Wednesday and Thursday is where they do most of the installation and most of the running. On Friday, it's just more maintenance, throwing out some things. They don't throw the ball as much. Now, Tom has more experience than anyone that's ever played this game. Now, he's going to need it, especially if he's banged up. But if he's banged up, watch for New England to change their game plan. Either watch for him try to throw the ball really short, either sideways, horizontally compared to vertically, and watch for him to try to run the ball because even though Tom's hand might be banged up, they know they're playing against Blake Bortles. So they're going to have a game plan that I believe is going to reflect that Tom's hand was injured in practice, and we're going to see a very, very different game plan, I think, come Sunday by Tom Brady and the Patriots.
Before I give my opinion on this, I just want to follow up with a question for you on that. How hard is it to change the game plan Thursday?
It's not that hard for New England.
Okay.
Because they have a variance of game plans going in. Like they might have come out and started throwing the ball, but saying we're going to get the lead, then eventually we're going to run the ball. And they are more game-specific, injury-specific. You know, if they don't have Gronk, what they're going to do. If they don't have a James White. So it's easier for them to adjust than other teams. So that right there makes you have less concern because it's New England.
All right, so I'm the resident gambling guy on the show. Vegas did take note of this. Vegas took note of this. The line moved more from Wednesday to Thursday than the line would have moved if Rob Gronkowski was ruled out of the game.
Wow.
The line moved 1.5, 2 points in some spots. Gronk's worth between 1 point and 1.5 points. So this was a significant line move from the Pats to 9.5 point favorites.
And tell people what that means. That's the people are shifting where they're betting.
All of a sudden, a lot of money came in on Jacksonville. Now, maybe that was just Joe Public who saw our show, saw Skip and Shannon, said, oh, my God, Brady hurt his hand. It might be broken. Let me bet a bunch of money on the Jags. Or maybe it's sharp bettors. Maybe it's people with information saying, oh, there's now value on the Jaguars. But the line moving that much with one thing changing, to me, makes it noteworthy. Brady then missing practice. So I knew the line moved before I knew Brady missed practice. Brady then missing practice compounds it. But I also have to say, the Pats, if Brady had to play left-handed, then this quarterback matchup's a draw because they're up against Blake Bortles. This game's in Gillette. The Jags are coming off consecutive, very difficult playoff games, very different playoff games. The first one was a slugfest 10-3. The second one, a high-scoring duel. The Patriots, meanwhile, had a week off and then blew out the Titans. This is if you thought the Pats were going to win prior to this, to me, this is not reason to change your opinion. The Pats, in my eyes, are still heavy favorites going into this football game because of the experience, because of where the game is, and because no one thinks Brady's not going to play. No one thinks Brady's going to be out of the football game, just maybe not quite as effective as you would have hoped he could be.
question for you. Just if we talk about him changing the game plan, what does it mean for the way, and I don't know this, the way you grip the football? Because you throw, right, with your fingertips. So what is the fact that your thumb is injured? Does that affect the distance he can throw, the velocity that he can throw?
Right. They haven't been specific as far as is it the hand, is it a thumb, or a finger? If it's thumb, which a lot of quarterbacks hurt their thumbs more so when they're throwing because they release, their thumb goes down, and it typically hits someone's helmet. So it's typically some type of bone bruise. Hope it's not the same bruise as Sam Bradford, because if not, he's going to lose his hand. But it's things for a couple days, and I could see from a caution standpoint, also it makes sense why they had an X-ray. All right, if there was some immediate swelling, immediately get an X-ray at the facility to make sure that you know that it's not broken. And then the next day, you're going to keep it compressed to make sure that the swelling and try to get it to die down before game day. New England is very, very fortunate. It's going to be unseasonably warm this weekend, and that is going to help. If it had been the normal in the 20s, wind chill in the teens, that would affect a quarterback's hand more so. And anytime you see Tom Brady wearing a glove, because he does not like to wear a glove, that's an alarm, too, right there, that something is a little bit different than what we're used to seeing.
Or that they want to cover up whatever it is and not let anyone see. And I know you think Mother Nature, as well as the refs and everyone else, is rooting for the Patriots. So there you go, Nick.
I don't know who's rooting for the Pats, but I do know this. We thought it being unseasonably warm 48 hours ago, that was good for the Jags.
Right.
That all of a sudden the Jags aren't going to have to deal with the elements. It's interesting now with this, it could tilt it to where the Patriots are happy about this. I can't hear this, though, and not think about what was the biggest story of the Patriots' regular season, which is trading Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, I understand they have to deal with where they're at right now. I understand Brian Hoyer's their backup quarterback. He has experience in the system. But this is a team that doesn't carry three quarterbacks, that had, without question, going into this year, the best quarterback situation in the league's best backup quarterback, and a third stringer who has shown he can start games and win games for multiple teams in this league. To go from that to be in the AFC Championship game where Brian Hoyer who hasn't taken a meaningful snap for the Patriots in years, where Brian Hoyer's your backup quarterback, it does make me think about not only that, the article about why Garoppolo was traded, the timing where he was traded, that entire circumstance.
CeCe, what would have to happen for Brian Hoyer to be playing football on Sunday?
Oh, a disaster. They didn't send something from North Korea and it's didn't hit us if he gets in the game. I mean, it's...
So he's going to play with his thumb like this. I mean, they have to be. Could he be playing and they're losing so badly they pull him?
Let's not forget, Tom Brady is a football player. All right, he's going to be out there. That's his team. All right, it's his legacy at stake. All right, let's not get carried away. If he can't play, if he can't grip the football, Bill and them are going to make the best decision for the football team, just like they do anything else. Tom Brady will get a chance to play. Now, can Jacksonville take advantage of the injury? And he's going to be very fortunate because it's a lot easier to grip the football when it's above freezing, which it's going to be on Sunday.
Look, I'm no drama queen, but Patriots backup quarterback Brian Hoyer practiced in Brady's place because of that injured hand. And at last check, Jimmy Garoppolo is enjoying his offseason. New England is favored by more than a touchdown in this one. So what chance do the Jags have here? Head coach Doug Marrone got some interesting advice on this.
Want to beat the Patriots? Here's how. Advice from your number one fan is the Bulls first grade. That's the one thing I will say about this week. It's kind of thrown me off. I find it hard to believe how so many people have an opinion on how to beat the New England Patriots and no one's really have done that.
So give it up to the first grade class at Bulls School, who gave Marrone a whole packet with advice to taking down the Pats.
That's all.
CeCe, advice from grade schoolers aside, and it's adorable, really. I'm surprised more schools haven't done this in and around the Jacksonville area. What is the key to this matchup?
Well, they haven't been in the championship game since '99. So the kids have gone on to college.
So the last kids to write those letters were the parents of the kids writing these letters.
Right.
I mean, Doug Marrone is right that it is hard to come up with a calculated, educated, realistic plan to beat New England, especially in playoff games in Foxborough. But the one thing that Jacksonville has on its side, and I know Doug Marrone is is preaching this to Jacksonville. There's been 4 times you had this type of matchup where you had the NFL's leading passer against the #1 pass defense. It's happened since 1990. This will be the 4th time. If Doug Marrone, if he's on the right side of history, they will be 4-0 after this game because the #1 defense has shut down the #1 passer in the 3 previous times. They're 3-0. So the path to victory is this defense. Defense wins championships. Our boy Ray Lewis talks about that's what got him 2 championships. Jacksonville's path to victory is by shutting down Tom, making them one-dimensional, which they might be if he has a serious hand injury, and creating turnovers. That's the only way you're going to be able to beat New England, and that's especially the only way that you're going to be able to beat them in Foxborough.
So I know everyone's going to focus on strength versus strength. Patriots offense against Jags defense. It's the most interesting matchup. It involves Tom Brady. It involves all the great characters and players on the Jags defense. I want to flip it around just for a moment because here's what we know about the Patriots offense. They're getting to 20 points. They get to 20 over the last 3 years in games that Brady's played all the way through. They've been held under 19 twice.
In 3 years.
In the last 3 years, it's happened twice, held under 19. Once a 16-3 win against Denver, where they really took their foot off the gas last year. They probably could have scored more. And one, a 20-18 loss to Denver in the AFC Championship game a couple years ago. So Denver's the only team that's held Tom Brady under 19 points in the last 3 seasons. So the reason I mention that is the Jags defense can play great. Offense still got to get to 20. Or the team as a whole still has to get to 20. I don't think you can hold this Patriots. I don't think you can beat this Patriots team no matter how good your defense is 13-6. Remember when Ray was out here and I asked him, how many points did you guys feel like you guys needed? And he said 3. We only needed 3. And while that seemed hyperbolic, that team only allowed 10 points per game. This Jags defense, best defense in the NFL, they still allow 16 points per game. That's on league average. The Patriots will get to their 20. So how can the Jags get to that point total? To me, that is almost the underrated key of this football game, and I don't see them being able to do that unless Leonard Fournette has a massive football game.
They can do it with the defense. The defense could create turnovers. They could score a touchdown. They could put them in field goal range with a field goal. I think one of the major differences is Pittsburgh's defense was not great in the red zone. They did not slow down Jacksonville. I believe New England's defense, they will tighten up. Jacksonville might get some yards on them, but they are exceptional in the red zone. So those trips, if Jacksonville has one less trip in the red zone yesterday, where they converted to a touchdown, they lose to Pittsburgh. Right? But when they got into the red zone, they got touchdowns. And that was a huge part to the game because at the end, that was a big difference. So New England, people that say they don't like their defense, they give up a lot of yards. Man, it's points. How many points will they be able to negate one from the red zone?
Who's had the most success against the Patriots in the Super Bowl in the last couple of years?
The Giants.
The Giants and Tom Coughlin. How much of this week is going to be about Doug Marrone knocking on Tom Coughlin's door? And I understand Blake Bortles is no Eli Manning, but how much is going to be like, okay, you game planned against Tom Brady and a good portion of that offense?
I want to make a point on that because I've heard so many people bring up that exact point. The Giants, what's the Giants' methodology? What was the Broncos' methodology? It seems to me their methodology of beating the Patriots is it's nothing special about the Patriots or those teams. It's about the personnel they had. Because what's their methodology? Get to the quarterback without having to send extra guys. Get to the quarterback with a 4-man rush. Cece, tell me if I'm wrong. Isn't that every team's hope? Isn't that every game plan?
But the Giants made it work, and everyone goes in trying to do that.
Every team can't do that.
Agreed.
Every team does not have Pro Bowl corners. Every team does not have the type of rushers that they had that compile the type of sacks. So, no, they want to, I mean, they say they want to get pressure, but they know they got to blitz to get pressure. So, no, every team's job is not to say, we're going to rush forward today because they know they can't get there.
Go ahead, Jenna.
I was going to say, then how did the Giants figure out a way to do it?
Well, they had the guys. They had the personnel, which is why...
The NASCAR package.
Right. They could put 4D... Go ahead.
They could have a rotation of 7 guys. And when they got to 3rd down and long, they put in almost all speed guys. But the combination of what they had up front and their linebackers, man, they were physical in the secondary. They realized you had to bump these guys off the line of scrimmage. So collectively, the front end tied up with the back end, and that's what led to the victory.
And you don't see hints of that with this Jacksonville team?
No, I absolutely do see hints of that because of the point that I'm making is a lot of people are drawing the Tom Coughlin comparison. I think Chris Carter could be the president of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their game plan is going to be the same. It's about the guys. It's about whether it's Justin Tucker, Calais Campbell.
The biggest difference is when you have your voice in the room, you have proof. Tom Coughlin, I will listen to him on anything football, and especially how do you beat the Patriots. Doug Marrone said it. All these people out here giving advice on how to beat the Patriots, don't nobody know better than Tom Coughlin. So you can believe Tom Coughlin. He got Calais Campbell. He got A.J. Bouye. All these people came with Tom Coughlin. Doug Marrone's physical style, it matches Tom Coughlin. If you think Doug Marrone, man, he's a good football coach. If you're not taking advantage of the asset in Tom Coughlin, you are naive. Tom Coughlin is playing a bigger role in this game than the other 2 victories in the playoffs.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf. That is the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. That guy right there still getting dressed is Nick Wright. And, guys, what an unbelievably exciting weekend we had this past weekend.
And it is no better way for us to have our 100th show than for it to be our first show where we know who's playing in the Super Bowl officially.
Yes.
The 2 number 1 seeds.
Yeah, we had a good night. We went to the game in Philadelphia, got back in time, so looking forward to a big-time show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What a game that was.
And 100 shows. We glossed over it. That's amazing. We made it.
And definitely the people of Philadelphia are definitely in the top 100 people I've ever met before in my life.
Oh, my God. Well, speak for yourself.
Like 100 best people,
I mean,
100
something.
most excited people, most
interesting.
Most
Let's
colorful,
go
interesting.
Yeah. And they must be watching the show, given the reception of yours truly, but we can wait on that one as I sip my coffee.
All right, let's start in the AFC, though. At some point in the 4th quarter of this game, with the Patriots trailing 20-10 in a game where they had lost Rob Gronkowski, where Tom Brady was playing with 10 stitches in his throwing hand, and with the Jaguars playing great football, there was a Patriot fan, we'll call her Steph Gosk, who mumbled to herself quietly, "No problem." And she was right. Patriots behind Tom Brady pulling off another comeback win, beating the Jaguars 24-20. That's the most excited I've literally ever seen Bill Belichick. 24-20 to head to their 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years. Number 8 for Brady. The last 4 times the Pats have trailed by double digits in a playoff game, they came back and won. Here is Tom Brady.
I mean, it's never really over until it's over with this team. So, you know, I was proud of the way we fought. It's a mentally tough team, and we need a lot of mental toughness today, and we found a way to dig deep and get it done. I mean, this was a little injury at the end of the day. It's certainly a big part of what a quarterback does. I mean, I've had a lot worse injuries than this, but if this was on my left hand, I could care less, but it's based on where it was, and, you know, we had to deal with it.
I mean, look, Tom did a great job, and he's a tough guy. We all know that, all right? But, I mean, I'm not talking about open heart surgery here.
All right, so for Tom Brady, this was his 54th career comeback win when they're trailing in the 4th quarter or tied in the 4th quarter. 11 in the playoffs. That's an outstanding number for him. So you see, how are the Patriots just always able to come back in games like this?
Well, it's a perfect combination. It is the most disciplined, the best situational coach that we've seen in football. And it's not fair to compare Belichick to Lombardi and some other people that people aren't familiar with. But in the modern coaching era, he is the absolute best at every game situation, in-game situation. And then he also, the last 17 years, has been partnered with the greatest quarterback that we've ever seen, who is, Tom is great, but Tom can also be a game manager. That's what he had to do yesterday. He had to manage his pain, be able to manage his emotions, manage the emotion of the defense going against the Jacksonville team that early, they needed Tom to be at the best of his game. So it's a perfect marriage, Belichick and Brady. That's how they're able to do it because they get everything else buttoned up. They're going to be better in close situations. They're going to be better in 4 minutes. They're going to be better going into halftime. They're going to be better after halftime making adjustments. And that's what we've been able to see with all this success. Typically in New England, you can't name it. We always say Tom Brady and Belichick. But in the big games, they always have 4 or 5 guys who are not the stars,
right,
they're just supporting roles. They always come through. I'm talking about from back in the day. It was either Ty Law making an interception, Vrabel coming up with the sack, Teddy Bruschi, he reads the coverage and picks off a pass, Willie McGinnis.
Gerard Mayo made big plays.
I mean, this is how they do things. Belichick and Brady set the table, but these other ancillary players realize in these big games, they come up with plays. Stephon Gilmore coming over from Buffalo, signed him to a big-time contract. He gets the knockaway on 4th down. So there's not one thing, but the way they go about business leads to them being better at critical situations, Nick, than other teams in the NFL.
The Stephon Gilmore point's a great one. I mean, that was their big free agent signing.
20 weeks ago, they wish they could send him back to Buffalo.
And he seals the game to send him to the Super Bowl. I mean, you were mentioning, guys, Dante Hightower made 2 different game-saving plays in the last 2 Super Bowls. Like, he's a good player, but he's not the Brady Belichick. But on Brady and Belichick, everyone's going to focus on the end of the game, and I will as well in a moment. But how about the end of the first half, where the Patriots kill you every time? We hadn't yet left for the Eagle game. And I'm sitting with you watching this, and I say, man, I was calculating. How many first downs do the Jags need? Not to add points when it was 14-3.
Right.
Just to make sure New England doesn't get the ball back. Because what they were better than everyone in the league again this year is points in the final 2 minutes of the first half. They get a touchdown. Now, conversely, what did the Jags do then? They get the ball back, and they're shook from that. They're maybe happy to be up 4. They take a knee with 55 seconds left. How rare is that, CC?
It's very rare.
Well, it hadn't happened in the NFL all year. That was 0 times all year did a team take a knee with more than 50 seconds left in the first half. But that's the end of the half. So the Jags maybe could add 3. The Patriots did add 7. And then the end of the game, where success begets success, where confidence begets confidence. Can we just show America what the Pats have done in their last 3 biggest games, the last 2 Super Bowls, and yesterday's game in the 4th quarter? They trailed by double digits in the 4th quarter of each of those games. How about you win those 4th quarters 53-3?
Yeah, and no one will ever talk about the defense.
No, right.
Give up a field goal.
Give up a field goal. The only points they've given up in the 4th quarter overtime of the last 2 Super Bowls and yesterday was the field goal the Jags kicked to start the 4th quarter for yards that were given up pre-4th quarter. Some context on how rare that is. All right, in the last 10 years, the entire NFL, when trailing by double digits in the 4th quarter in the playoffs, is 3-70. The Patriots are 3-4. Like, in NFL playoff history, the record for most 4th quarter double-digit comebacks was the Dallas Cowboys with 2. The Pats have 3 in the last 4 seasons. So I thought age was going to catch up to Tom Brady. I came into this year believing both these were true. He's the greatest quarterback ever, and also he's a 40-year-old quarterback, and it's not going to be sustainable late into the season. Well, you look at how he played last week. You look at what he did in the 4th quarter yesterday. The guy's as good, in the critical moments, as good as he's ever been.
And the Patriots don't have to come out, and this is what we're seeing as Tom Brady's getting older and as the Patriots are getting more accustomed to learning how to win games as opposed to how to just play games. They don't need to come out and dominate for 60 minutes. They need to dominate when it's time for them to dominate.
Right. They don't have dominant personnel either. Like, they don't have that ability. Not unless they're facing one of the lesser talented teams. They're not going to overwhelm you as you start the game. Yes.
You're right. And let's talk about what they had. They had a quarterback whose throwing hand was injured, and we didn't really know how bad it was. Their number 1 guy, Rob Gronkowski, was rendered, useless, basically. He never came back after he was thrown out of the game. And they were trailing in the 4th quarter. They had all of this stuff working against them, but because they don't have to dominate, they said, okay, well, let's just, and you mentioned the CC, which was so important. What they're so good at is keeping their emotions in check, knowing what they have to do, not playing ahead of the play that's right in front of them, not figuring out how many points they need to win, just figuring out how to get the next series of points. And you watch them methodically come back, calmly, focused, and they came out with a win.
Yeah, when they were down 20-14, I told Nick, we were in the car, we're watching it. They're going to win 24-20. He's like, what? I said, yeah, they're going to score 2 more touchdowns and be able to win the game. But I think that their ability, because we watched the first game of the season. Knicks, Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, this defense is not fast. It's not big. It's not good. The coverage is probably the best part. That's their secondary is probably the best part of this defense. But their ability collectively to be able to shut people down in third down situations, in fourth quarter situations, that we won't ever give defense and Belichick enough credit because this is not great personnel. One of the best players on New England's defense is a 39-year-old that they got off of the side of the road that Pittsburgh
James
cut.
Harrison made 2 huge plays. 2 huge plays. Why did they sign James Harrison? Oh, not to play, just because he's going to have some intel on a Steelers team they never ended up playing again.
Stop. Belichick, don't waste my time. Like, he wouldn't – he's too smart for petty stuff like that. He knows the guy can play. He's an upgrade from a guy that's playing the position. Now, let's go get him. I don't care what team he played for.
All right, and so you mentioned that people don't give the defense enough credit and the scheme, and you're right. I'm going to, though, once again focus on the other side of the ball for just a moment. You've said about Brady that when you talked to him before the year about retirement, that he said, why would I stop taking the test when I have all the answers to the test? He's seen everything, and now he knows what people are going to do. That is exacerbated and put on an extreme level in the fourth quarter of these games. It's like sometimes in these games, it's a pop quiz, to use the test analogy. Wasn't quite prepared for it in the beginning. But by the fourth quarter, and you've seen what the defense has done, he's solved it. In the fourth quarter of these spots, CC, those 3 games I mentioned, he's got 5 touchdowns, no picks, a 140 quarterback rating, and 500 yards against really good defenses.
Yes, and I would say that Tom Brady has never faced pressure like he faced going into yesterday's game.
Why?
Being injured on Wednesday, handing off to Rex Burkhead, gets 10 stitches on the inside of his hand. Now, it didn't affect his ability to throw the ball, but the shockwaves that it sent through New England, because you know what happened? There was a power struggle this year in New England, and Tom Brady won. But the only way he could prove out to win was by getting New England to the Super Bowl and winning them the Super Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo, they needed him in practice Thursday and Friday because even if Tom knew that Jimmy was there, he would have felt a lot better. Now, Tom wouldn't have let him play. But had this not worked out, had the cut on his hand affected New England and they had lost the game, we would be looking at Tom Brady and the power struggle between him, Mr. Kraft, and Belichick to be like, wow, I wonder if that affected the team. So for me, Tom had more pressure on him in this situation. If he forced Garoppolo out and then he would have missed time with an injury, man, Tom came through in the biggest situation and seems like he won the power struggle. Look like we're going to be seeing him play in New England for a few more years.
If the Patriots were worried about Tom Brady's hand, we certainly didn't know about it. Look, this thing was either a paper cut or an amputation. That is how few details the team let out about his injury. Turned out he got about 10 stitches on his throwing hand, and it limited him 0% in the win over the Jaguars. He threw for 290 yards, 2 touchdowns. Fourth quarter comeback. He now heads to his 8th Super Bowl. And, oh, by the way, he turns 41 in August. Here he is after the game.
You know, you cherish these moments and opportunities, and I know we've had quite a few of them, which we've been very blessed to do, and it's just been an unbelievable run. And I think everyone should be really proud of what we accomplished. This is a different team than last year's team, and, you know, it didn't look good at 2-2, and, you know, you just keep showing up to work every day, and we sit in these chairs, and Coach Belichick gets up here, and he demands a lot out of us, and he tries to get the most out of us every day. And it's not always great. You know, sometimes it's pretty average, and then, you know, you're just trying to get better and better and get to the point where you can make, you know, the fourth quarter of a game and, you know, try to play well enough to get yourself into the next one. So just proud of our team, proud of what we accomplished. It's pretty amazing. And proud of this team, you know, great leadership, and it's just been a great year.
Tom Brady has the ability to answer everyone's question without them answering it in one answer. He literally answered 15 questions that were not answered in that one answer right there. Chris, how remarkable is this for Tom Brady?
It's unbelievable. I mean, for a franchise that has the most Super Bowl appearances and then Brady and Belichick going to their 8th Super Bowl, I think that speaks for itself. But just when you watched that second half comeback win for Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. One of the things that stood out to me was just the synergy between what Bill Belichick wants to do with his scheme and how Tom Brady goes out and executes it. When you saw the wheel route pass to Danny Amendola, when you saw the touchdown pass to Danny Amendola in the back of the end zone, the accuracy that it takes to put that football only in a place where Amendola has a shot at making a play on the ball, to me, that's what makes Tom Brady special. That's what separates him from the rest of the quarterbacks. In those critical moments, he's able to make those plays, convert those plays, the 3rd and 18 to Chris Hogan. He's able to make those plays when other quarterbacks don't make those plays. That's the difference.
The difference is, I'm sorry, the accuracy or the fact that he does it without getting ahead of himself and just being very level-headed about it?
Well, the attention to detail and then that accuracy and being able to execute in that moment. It all comes down to execution for the Patriots. And so when you start looking at this team and really breaking it down, more teams fold in those situations because they find ways to lose games. The Patriots don't beat themselves. And so when they're in those situations, they understand what's required. They understand what Tom Brady wants.
Right.
And he's able to put the ball in a position where they can make a play on it and the defense can't. And that's the difference in this team.
And even before, people need to remember that prior to 2007, statistically speaking, Brady was good, but was not an amazing all-time guy. The reason he was considered prior to 07 already going to be a Hall of Famer was because even early in his career, late in games in big spots, dating back to the first Super Bowl against the Rams, when John Madden, one of the greats of all time, was saying, I think you got to take a knee here and go to overtime.
Yep.
They trusted Tom Brady.
Also, the offensive coordinator told Tom Brady not to lose the game.
Right. And
Drew Bledsoe, who was honorary captain for them last night, told him, don't listen to him. Go out there and win
Go win the game.
Yes.
And this has been who he is. Tom Brady has as many double-digit fourth-quarter comebacks in the playoffs in the last 4 years as the entire rest of the NFL has in the last 10 years. And they were in one Super Bowl, another Super Bowl, and then an AFC championship game. This is where Brady is right now. Prior to last season, he was the greatest quarterback in the history of football. Since then, he has won a Super Bowl with a 25-point comeback, gotten to another one. He has now been to a Super Bowl in nearly half of the years he's been a full-time starter. In fact, it has been. He's been a full-time starter for 16 years because one of those years he blew out his knee on the first game of the season. It's been to 8 Super Bowls. There is no hyperbole with this guy. And he does it in the biggest spots. He was just okay through 3 quarters, CC. No touchdowns, 150 yards, 87 quarterback rating.
Right.
Then what did he do in the fourth quarter? Played a perfect football game.
In my 50 years of living on this earth, Tom Brady is the phenomenon that sets itself apart from anything I've witnessed. And I've been at the Masters with Tiger Woods. I'm a huge fan of Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods was on his way to do the most incredible thing that we had saw athletically the last 50 years. Michael Jordan. I traveled with the Bulls. That was the most phenomenal thing that I've seen until I witnessed Tom Brady. I was in Atlantic City when Mike Tyson was knocking people out every month. All comers, I'll fight you anywhere. All these things. The difference with Brady is it's not physical skill. He's not overwhelming. He's not Michael Jordan. He's not hanging in the air. He's not Tiger Woods, the best athlete that ever played golf. He's not Mike Tyson, the most ferocious guy that's ever been heavyweight champ. He's Tom Brady. He's a good-looking guy. And the trick to it, Nick, in the last 10 years, he's gotten better at his fundamentals. Tom has never had a big arm, but he's even gotten more and more accurate as he's gone along. You don't have to be. Michael Jordan wasn't great all the time, but in the critical moments, Tom Brady has been better than any other athlete. And what I tell you, Nick, the difference between the good players and the great players, how long can they stay in their prime? And now we're talking about a guy that turns 41 in August who is still the best quarterback in the National Football League. And it's not about size, power, and speed. It's about his brain. It's about his whole approach. And I tore my thumb, all right? I had 15 stitches across my thumb. It wasn't when I was 40. It was when I was stupid and 20 and jumping out of a college dormitory window, all right? All the wrong reasons. But the pain I was in, and to have Tom Brady play a football game like he played, where he is holding the Patriots in their fate in his own hand, in his thumb, That was phenomenal. You don't go to the practice field an hour and a half and start throwing when you've been to 7 Super Bowls. It lets you know how Tom was concerned about his hand. So ability to be able to do this on the level he's been able to do it and be consistent at it, I'm a fan of greatness. That's why I'm a fan of Tom Brady and what they're doing in New England.
I think you put it perfectly, CC. His competitive greatness in the National Football League is
Say
unmatched.
that again, and what is that?
His competitive greatness is unmatched in the National Football League. Competitive greatness is being at your best when your best is needed. And that's exactly what he was in that fourth quarter of the game. Yesterday, that's what he was in the second half of that game in the Super Bowl. When you see those types of performances, when you see the attention to detail, the focus and the execution, and it goes back to what you said, CC, doing the fundamentals better than anybody else on the field, that's what makes Tom Brady special. He's willing to do that, and he understands what he needs to do in preparation to be able to do that week in, week out. So his level of consistency and then rising to the challenge in those moments, that's what makes him the greatest quarterback of all time.
He has to do that because he's not going to compete athletically with other quarterbacks in the league. He's not going to compete strength-wise, height-wise, mobility-wise.
Right. And he plays a position where it's not that important.
It's not that important because if you're going to win at the highest level in this league, your quarterback has to be able to make plays from the pocket.
Correct, but I think where other athletes that are getting a little older in age say, all right, well, my skills are kind of lessening a little bit. I already know how to play the game. Tom Brady shows up early every day. Tom Brady still studies. Tom Brady
He's
still
obsessed with this.
He loves it. He loves getting better.
It is, and you saw if you were at least the stream. I was watching online, and so because we were in the car on the way to the game, but I think over the air as well, you saw these commercials for that documentary series he's doing. He talks about you're going to have to sacrifice. You're going to have to sacrifice time with your family. This, that, because he's chasing something. I know how much you love, CC, these blind reveals. I want to show America 2 Hall of Famers. Can we show this? Here are 2 Hall of Fame resumes. Left-hand side, 197 touchdowns, 93 ratings, 3 Super Bowl wins, 1 loss. Right-hand side, 291 touchdowns, a 101 rating, 2 Super Bowl wins, 1 loss. Show America who these 2 people are, if we could. That's Brady pre-ACL and post-ACL. Either one of those on its own make the Hall of Fame. And by the way, the one on the right doesn't even include this year's Super Bowl he just got into because we don't know if they're going to win or lose it. There are 2 players in the history of football that I believe it's true you could take just half their career and they get one of your gold jackets. Jerry Rice and Tom Brady. It is as remarkable of a sustained run of excellence as we've ever seen in sports.
And I think that if you're a young person, I want you to go back and look at Tom Brady's 40-yard dash at the Combine. And I want you to look at his body. And I want you to see the way he played football yesterday and to let you know that if you train mentally and physically, as you get older, you can get better. And your physical limitations won't limit your ability to be able to dream and to be able to execute. Because Tom Brady, when he gets in the pocket, you don't have to be 6'7". You don't have to run a 4.40. But he's able to do it in the most pressure-packed situation. And that, I know, Chris, you and I are the only 2 people can understand that. You will never find me disrespecting Tom Brady because how he's able to do this. I made 8 Pro Bowls. This dude made 8 Super Bowls. I mean, it's amazing. It's truly amazing. Much respect.
We love the fact that he works out this hard in his 40s. Anyone that works out this hard in their 40s. Hallelujah. And if he could put it on his Instagram account, he probably would.
Before you go on, I just want to say one thing. This is our 100th show. When we started this show, there were a few people we didn't know about that we didn't know were going to be regular guests. Chris Canty's one of those people. You have been such a great addition to the show. Thank you so much.
Thank
you really
you
helped
so
these
much,
first 100 shows. Thank you, brother.
If you want to see 200, you better step it up.
We start with good news for you this morning. We're all about you. The Super Bowl is set. We know who's playing. It's Patriots and Eagles. But the good news for us, we now get to talk about it from every single angle for 12 straight days. 288 hours, Nick.
Ooh, get that.
Good job, Jenna.
To your calculator.
Job,
thank you. The Eagles are 5.5-point underdogs, the biggest underdog in the Super Bowl since 2009 when the Steelers were 7-point dogs to the Cardinals. Eagles coach Doug Peterson spoke about the Super Bowl opponent.
It's impressive, obviously, and it's well respected and well documented. At the same time, we're just going to prepare the same and try to block out all the noise. There's going to be a lot, written, probably both extremes, But again, our guys have been resilient. They've been able to block that noise out, and once the ball is teed up and kicked off. Just trust our players, trust our schemes, and play football.
I mentioned the Steelers were dogs. They were actually the favorites in that game. I was there at that game, so it was obvious that I got that wrong. That's awesome.
That was a great game.
That was a
game that seemed like it had 2 game-winning touchdowns. The Larry Fitzgerald play, deep down the field in the shuffle pass, the whole thing, and the San Antonio home.
Tremendous
We
finish.
could only hope for a similar outcome in this one. CeCe, why are the Eagles why aren't they getting just a little bit more respect here? I mean, they've been underdogs the whole way through the playoffs.
Well, they should have been the underdogs. I mean, they were the #1 seed, but this was the year of horrific injuries around the National Football League. J.J. Watt, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun in Houston, just OBJ. I mean, so many players got hurt this year. But also, so many teams' quarterback got hurt. But none was put in the more precarious position than the Philadelphia Eagles. They were clearly the best team in the NFC throughout the first 13 weeks of the regular season. And then they lose who was going to be the MVP in Carson Wentz. So in doing that, because they don't have a bunch of explosive offensive players, yes, people became skeptical of how can Nick Foles keep this team on the right direction that Carson had them on. And the only game that we've seen is the Minnesota game that he was able to produce the type of productivity that you would say, wow, this team has not missed a beat. So we have to tell ourselves which Nick Foles is going to show up. The Nick Foles that we saw for 3 games before we saw in the NFC Championship game with over 400 yards, 10 out of 14 on 3rd down. The likelihood of him showing up in U.S. Bank Stadium on 200, how many hours is it?
288 hours.
288 hours from now. That's the reason why people are saying that they're the underdog or they don't get the respect. Also, Jason Peters out. Jordan, left tackle. Jordan Hicks, the middle linebacker, out. And the way we didn't think this team was good enough to be able to maintain the level of play with these injuries, so we thought that they were the least respectable #1 seed we had seen in a long time. And that's the reason why they can play the underdog card.
And we hadn't seen a backup quarterback with that little experience within the season. 3 or fewer games started.
Yes.
Win a single playoff game since your 97 Vikings with Randall Cunningham. And we've now seen Nick Foles win 2 playoff games. I do want to say something interesting about this point spread. Opened at 6, it's now 5.5, right? That is on a neutral site. The Eagles were 2.5 or 3-point dogs at home in their previous 2 playoff games.
Good point.
So
yes.
You get 3 points for being at home. So what that means is Vegas has said in basically each of their playoff games, against the Falcons, against the Vikings, and now against the Patriots, the Eagles are about 6 points worse than their opponent. It just didn't appear that way because they were in Philadelphia for the first 2. Now, what is to me the most interesting about that is the respect that the Eagles have from Vegas and the public has been going up week by week. But their opponent has also gotten harder week by week. The Vikings are better than the Falcons. The Patriots are better than both of them.
Yes.
And so that's why we basically said, Vegas said, hey, our neutral site, this seems about 5.5, 6 points worse. So that explains the point spread. Now I want to talk about something that we discussed writing into the Eagles-Vikings game when I thought the Vikings were going to win. I know, CeCe, you probably thought it was going to be closer than I did, but you also thought the Vikings were going to win. And that is the experience factor the Patriots have of going to Super Bowls, which is so different than the experience factor of a playoff game because the whole week is so different for everyone involved. The media responsibilities, the family responsibilities, the 2 weeks before the games. And one of the things I was saying is what an edge Minnesota would have in not having to travel if they were in it, if they were up against Jacksonville, and how it would be muted if they were going to play the Patriots who are used to it.
Right, and Minnesota, they've experienced pretty much everything in Minnesota. So there would be nothing to see.
Right.
Most of their relatives and everything wouldn't be at the hotel. They would either be at the hotel or coming to the players' houses. They're familiar with the practice facility, so their routine would be so much more familiar. Now, they're going to go to a couple parties and everything because it is the Super Bowl. But you're right. You make a great point as far as that advantage was negated.
And now you're Philadelphia, where aside from Chris Long, there is not a relevant player on your team that's played in a Super Bowl. And LeGarrette Blount, Chris Long and LeGarrette Blount, who both did it with New England. And then you have New England, who aside from Stephon Gilmore and Brandon Cooks, there doesn't seem to be a super relevant player on your team that hasn't played in one or a couple Super Bowls. And that, I think, playoff experience sometimes is overrated. But Super Bowl week experience could be a little underrated. So even if right now, why do I bring this up? Even if right now the general public is warming up to the Eagles, man, oh man, the Pats' edge as far as not only the quarterback matchup, but the experience matchup from the coaches as well is an enormous one.
I wonder if, I would assume it would be. The point spread would have been less had the Eagles not been as dominant against the Vikings.
It would have been big. You mean
they would have
Patriots would have been bigger favorites.
Correct.
Patriots probably be 7.5-point favorites if the Eagles had just eked out a win over Minnesota.
I think a lot of that, and you both bring up a good point, is really about the discipline, and that comes down to how these two teams are going to handle the limelight of what the Super Bowl is. And it's easy to just say, well, Belichick has these guys locked up and buttoned up. They've done it. They've been there. We'll take care of your tickets. We'll take care of the parties. We'll take care of everything else. I just want to focus on football. It's really hard for a guy like Doug Peterson to say, okay, this is what it's going to be like. This is what it's going to feel like. You're probably going to get distracted here. You might get distracted here. Guys, try to tune all that out and try to just focus on football. Those just become words when really no one except those two guys in the locker room has been there and done that.
And both teams are benefiting that it's going to be in Minnesota, that there's not going to be a lot of extra activities that you would be going to if it was in San Francisco, if it was in other places
South Beach,
that we host the Super Bowl. So that right there it should help both teams. But Bill Belichick, there's only been 52 Super Bowls. Now, he's been in 11 of them.
That's crazy.
3 with the Giants, okay? And now 8 with the Patriots.
Crazy.
And if you think, forget disrespect. If you think doing something 11 times you've been involved in and it's only happened 52 times, I'm sure even if you was just laying on the floor, you would have an advantage just being there.
Right.
So listening to the interviews of the Patriot players yesterday, Ricky Jean-Francois, a new guy in New England, you could hear him saying, I'm cutting off my phone on Wednesday. You can text me. If I don't answer, that means get back to me after the Super Bowl. So you can see it already being ingrained in the New England players. And what I'm worried about is Nick Foles. I saw his interview after the NFC Championship game. They asked him, how do you feel? He said, I'm still kind of in a daze. I don't realize what happened. Now, how long is Nick Foles going to be able to keep up his energy with interviewing for the next 10 days? Because 2 days before the game, on that Friday, is the last interview. So that just meticulous, answering the same questions over and over again.
By everyone.
Does that distract Nick Foles from the game plan and playing the biggest game of his life compared to Tom Brady, who says, I've done this 8 times. And I'm sure that Tom will have the ability to keep the answers fresh because he's been through it so many times. Huge advantage from the quarterbacks.
And I know that the great athletes always say, what's the biggest game you've ever played in? The next one or the last one. Like, there are no great athletes that will concede, oh, I've won enough, so it doesn't really matter if I. But what is true is, CeCe says, when we talk about retired athletes, their cement is dry. I get that Brady and Belichick's cement is still wet, but all that we're carving into it is just extra slashes on the end of the wins. Like, we know where they are. We know what they've proven. And so for those guys, you can make an argument like, is this the biggest game they've played in? Probably not. Is it the second? I don't know. Is it the third? I guess you like we don't for the Eagles that it's the biggest game any of these guys have ever played in. That's something that Peterson, and it's the biggest game he's ever coached in, has to start overcoming right now. I would imagine.
Yes, I think the reality though of Tom Brady last Wednesday lacerating his hand, realizing anything can happen. Also, watch the embrace of Patricia and Belichick and Josh. This is their last hurrah. This is the last last time those three will be together. So this collection of team, and I know that Tom will not take this moment for granted. There is a big difference in leaving Minneapolis in 2 weeks, 6-2, compared to 5-3. Right. So I believe that this is the most important game for Bill Belichick in New England that they've ever played.
Like I said, the great athletes, the next one's always the most important one.
But no, but even if you're right, and this isn't the biggest game they've ever played.
I'm sure LeBron James would rather be 5-3 than
of course,
than
but
3
you
and
will
5.
not see that on their faces, and you will not see that when it comes to game prep from this New England team.
Hey guys, it's Nick Wright. Thank you so much for listening to the First Things First podcast. But before the show moves along, I want to tell you about another great podcast available from Fox Sports. It's the Maybe I'm Crazy podcast with Joy Taylor. You know my friend Joy from Undisputed, but on Maybe I'm Crazy, she's breaking down the biggest stories in the world of sports in only a way Joy Taylor can. Does any other podcast beside Maybe I'm Crazy have loser power rankings? I don't think so. So check out the Maybe I'm Crazy podcast with my pal JT every week from Fox Sports.
So after the Eagles win over the Falcons, offensive lineman Lane Johnson donned an underdog mask. Nick, it was really just a dog mask with an Eagles taking the under on that one.
I get it. Thanks. I never understood.
Okay.
They were big fans of German Shepherds.
The mask became a viral sensation, and how lucky are we? Joining us now without the mask is Lane Johnson. Lane, thank you so much for hanging out with us this morning.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
Lane, you guys have been underdogs in the eyes of Las Vegas each week so far in the playoffs. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that so far it's actually been working for you. How much motivation has that given you guys? How much of an injection of confidence and motivation does that give you?
I think it gives us a lot. I think the main thing that I wanted to do with it is create energy. I think when you create energy amongst your football team, that it makes them play better. And, that's been my whole goal from the start.
In creating energy, rumor has it that yourself and Chris Long potentially came up with the concept of the underdog mask. And also, is that true? And there's been some good things as far as the proceeds that you have made sure happen that have been able to help out a lot of young people in Philadelphia. Can you explain that to the fans?
Yeah, so basically, I think it was before practice, we were having lunch, and Chris came up to me. You know, he's a pretty colorful character, and he said, since we're underdogs all the time, why don't we just go buy us an underdog mask? And, I'm not sure what that looks like. So I went to Amazon and saw a German Shepherd mask and thought, hey, that looks pretty good. So I bought it. And right before the game, I gave it to Jason Peters before the Falcons game. And if we'd lost, that mask would have been in the trash somewhere. But fortunately, we won and we broke it out. And it's been here ever since. And as far as funding the schools, I've been here for 5 years and just going around the schools that we have in Philly. A lot of those schools are underfunded, and it's really a shame.
And it's really cool. I saw after a tweet Chris Long sent that the NFL, which is selling similar apparel now, they're going to donate the proceeds as well. It's a really cool thing you guys have done. Before we went on the air, Chris and I were talking to you about the atmosphere at the Link for the NFC Championship game. We were at that game. We were not at the round before, but I imagine the atmosphere was amazing in that round as well. I know you've been playing in Philly for a while. However, you hadn't played in a game anything like the game Sunday until Sunday. Can you tell us on the field what it was like? Because it was the loudest outdoor stadium I've ever been a part of as a fan. What was it like playing in it?
It was crazy. And I think, whenever they went and scored, it kind of, things got a little bit iffy. But once Pete Robb got the interception, that's when the whole building just clicked. And it was pretty much gone since then. And, the battle's one of the trenches. They can talk about quarterbacks all day, but it's really about, I think, stopping the run and running the football. That's what wins games.
Lane, it's not only the last couple weeks, but earlier in the season, you guys sustained some injuries. Your boy, Jason Peters, he was out for the season. You've taken a leadership role with this team. You made comments about dethroning the pretty boy, Tom Brady. And did you expect these comments to get as much of attention that they've gotten?
I think it needs to. I mean, obviously he's the greatest quarterback of all time. I don't want to go to the Super Bowl and be, Hey, thanks, Tom. Thanks for having us. We wish you the best. Let's be in your good graces. And obviously, they're going to talk about him the whole week until they somehow get arthritis in their tongue. I don't know how that's going to be possible, but it'll happen. So from that standpoint, I'm going in confident. I want our team to be confident, and we're not just going there to celebrate. We're going there to win.
Very nice. And the pretty boy comments obviously stuck with me as well. I mean, you're both equally good looking, so I just wanted to make sure, Lane, that we got that
I got this on. I don't have hair like him.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I'm sure you had kale for breakfast, though. You slept in interesting pajamas, so you guys are basically identical twins.
That's awesome.
Hey, let's talk about your quarterback, Nick Foles. Let's talk about your quarterback, Nick Foles, for a second. It's been an interesting couple of weeks for him. He obviously struggled a little bit getting his footing in the end of the regular season in the first couple games of the playoffs. He looked lights out last week. The question now is which Nick Foles is going to show up. But forget about that. Tell us what's going through his head right now, coming off that win, and where he is emotionally preparing for this game.
I think he's excited. I think it's, around 7:30. He should be getting breakfast like a lot of the normal players here. But, I mean, yeah, he's excited. He's very grounded. I think he used a lot of the doubt as motivation in the game. He was confident. He was poised. And I'm just happy for Nick. You know, as a quarterback, I think it takes time for those guys to get in a rhythm, and especially late in the year. You know, you have the first-string quarterback taking all the reps. He comes in and is doing the best he can. And, you know, here we are, Super Bowl 52.
All right, Lane, you joined us earlier in the year, and I admitted to you I was skeptical of the Eagles as a Super Bowl contender, and you said you were going to prove us wrong.
That's an understatement, Lane.
I was fair then. I want to be fair now. Give him a chance here. You didn't join us. You hadn't joined us since Carson got hurt. When Carson got hurt, whatever hope I harbored for the Eagles, I threw out. I said, you can't lose the MVP of the league and still be okay. How in the locker room did you guys not lose the confidence? You guys seem to carry the same swagger pre and post. I know you mentioned it's about the trenches game, running and stopping the run, but this is the most important position on the field, the guy who's playing at the highest level of anyone in the league. You lose him for the year. How were you guys able to maintain confidence? What part did Doug Peterson play into that? Just walk me through that.
I think you just say, everybody calm down, let's don't panic. We have a lot of veteran guys that have been in the playoffs, that have played in Super Bowls, so we have those guys come and speak to us. And it's just really about being confident. You know, obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the league goes down, but there's also 21 other guys that are playing this game as well. So from that standpoint, you know, it was unfortunate, you know, losing him, losing Jason Peters, losing a lot of guys that we would love to have right now, but the season wasn't over. You know, and I think the front office did a very good job of establishing depth, which a lot of teams don't have, and you know, really just got the ball rolling. But I think it's really about just creating energy, staying positive, and staying on track.
Hey, Lane, I spent a couple years working as a sportscaster in Philadelphia. I got to know the fans there, and sometimes they adopt this us against the world mentality, and it's impressive. They really, truly believe that there's no one out there that they can't beat, and there's no game they can go into where they can't win. But now you guys are going against a team that has been there many times and has done that many times in the New England Patriots, and I'm wondering if there is anything daunting about that. Just maybe even if you compare the experience they have with the experience your team has, or any number of those things you can go down the line. Is there anything daunting about that team?
Yeah, I mean, got the greatest quarterback of all time. What does he have, 5 rings? He's working towards 6. Yeah, that's a daunting task to go in against. I don't want to go into the game, hey, let's hope we win. I want to go in there being confident, throw all the haymakers we can. Hey, if we come up short, then, hey, we have no excuses. I think going into a game scared and hoping to win, that's not the way to go. If you're a competitor in this league, you know, getting your team to have the same mindset is what we need to win. So obviously I have a lot of respect for the Patriots, for Tom Brady, what they've done. You know, there's not another team like them. So, but, you know, I'm glad we're in this spot. I'm glad the team's in the position. We worked hard to be where we're at, despite all the injuries and all the, you know, stuff that's happened to us, you know, along the year. But, you know, I think we're in a good spot.
Lane, a lot of people have not talked about your head coach, Doug Peterson. He does have experience in the Super Bowl as a player. You do have 6 other teammates, including Chris Long and LeGarrette Blount, who also were on New England last year. What type of, in the 48 hours after winning, what type of input have they given to the rest of the team to give you guys comfort as you head to Minneapolis for Super Bowl 52?
just stay the course. You know, the circumstances are going to change. Obviously, it's, you know, you're going to have different obligations that week. It's going to be a lot of media. It's the Super Bowl. It's the pinnacle of what this sport's about. But it's really just about being us. Don't try to be nothing that you're not. This is what got us here. Stay the course, and everything else will take care of itself.
Lane, I want to just go back to the NFC Championship game for a moment, a drive that might be forgotten, because you mentioned playing with confidence, that you're not going to be intimidated or play scared. You guys were up 21-7 with less than a minute left in the first half on the road. Everything had gone after that opening drive about as well as you possibly could have hoped. And then your head coach and offensive coordinator decided, we're going to keep going. We're not going to slow down. We're going to try to get points before the half. It ended up working out great. You guys got a field goal. But what's the feeling like in the huddle when it's like, okay, we're not even taking a knee. 30 seconds left, forget it. We're going to go try to get more points. And that mentality, is that one you hope to replicate in 11 days in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think Doug has an aggressive mindset. I think you saw what we did against the Falcons, getting in field goal range right before the half with Alshon. So it's really just having an aggressive approach. You know, not being too cute with things, but stay within our limits. We know what we can do, and I think anytime you can do that, that's just demoralizing to a defense. And why not?
Lane, I know you got to rock, but you did say that if you guys won the Super Bowl, you promised a beer to every single person in Philadelphia. A, you going to make good on that? And B, can I put in a request, albeit a lame beer suggestion? It is still my favorite. Please answer the question.
Yeah, there's going to be beer everywhere. Bud Light obviously said they would come to my hand, but hey, I'm not scared to put in my own money. I mean, I stand by my statement. Nobody expected us to be here. It's all a joke, ha-ha, but hey, here we are.
Yeah. You got a few stacks of money, too, so I'm sure you're going to be all right.
All right, Bud Light Lime. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Thank
Bud Light,
you, Lane.
that is my
Good
beer.
luck, man.
Hey, Lane, come on. There's much respect for my beer. Thank you.
Appreciate you, man.
Wish you all the best of luck. Thanks for
having
hanging out with us. Le'Veon Bell is talking about his contract with the Steelers. However, this time, it doesn't seem to be contentious. Bell told reporters yesterday that the two sides are a lot further along in negotiations than they were last year, and that he thinks they'll eventually be able to reach an agreement. CeCe, should the Steelers give Le'Veon a long-term deal?
It's going to be very difficult. It's hard to let talented players just walk and join another organization. I do believe he deserves a new contract, but I wouldn't sign him more than 3 years. And the reason why, because I know Ben's probably going to play another couple years. They're paying him a huge dollar. AB, Antonio Brown, he's being paid the highest paid receiver. So now you're starting to look like one of those other teams. All your money is on the offense. Seattle, all their money's on the defense. Their offensive line struggle. So what are you going to start to see? How do they improve their defense? Because they need a better defense than what we've seen. They did give up 40-something.
45.
To Jacksonville. All right, so that defense, we don't know who their middle linebacker is going to be. They need another pass rusher. So they have other needs that, to me, are easier to fill than getting another running back. He deserves a contract, but I wouldn't sign him long term. I would give him a 2 or 3 year deal, and then I would be able to move on so that from a salary cap standpoint, I have flexibility. I believe it's easier to get a running back, either through the draft or through free agency, that can give you productivity.
What about a 5-year deal that you can get out of after year 3? Would that be like one of those deals
yes. And also, he's one suspension from spending a lot of time away from football, too. So you have to consider all those things if you decide to give him a long-term contract.
But would you be okay with that? A 5-year deal where it's basically the first 2 years are guaranteed.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be happy with that. Yes, of course, we would like it as management, but I don't think he's going to be happy with that type of deal.
Because here's what I would try to do if I were the Steelers with Le'Veon Bell. Because I understand the hesitation about giving any running back their second contract. Even one of the very best in football is these guys seem to be best in their early 20s. The more carries, the more workload, and he's coming off a very heavy workload year. I get why teams are skeptical and hesitant to do it, especially because Alvin Kamara in the 3rd round exists. Like, you can find running backs later in drafts that can come in and have enormous production. Le'Veon Bell was not a first-round pick, so I understand that part of it. But I think your window with the Pittsburgh Steelers is right now. I think your window is, and your path to the Super Bowl is great offense. I know they lost to the Jaguars, and I understand that the defense looked bad in that game. The defense is going to be a little cheaper because they've spent so many first-round picks on the defense over the last few years. They still have a few of those guys left on rookie contracts. I don't want to lose the league's best running back or one of the 2 or 3 best running backs in the league in my final couple years of really good Ben Roethlisberger. Like, I absolutely want to bring back the core that gave me, in my eyes, the most dynamic offense in football this year, at least for another season. If that means I could be in a tough salary cap situation in 3 years because Le'Veon's no longer productive and he's got 1 year left of some guaranteed money.
Maybe it makes it okay if you get a Super Bowl or you get something like that.
If your window stays open, like, to me, that would be worth it. It's why when we talked about this last week, I said I think he's going to stay in Pittsburgh. I think they want to keep that group of triplets together.
Yeah, but I can also support them moving on.
Okay.
Yes, and getting another player in free agency and draft a player.
All right, let's move on to Le'Veon's teammate, the aforementioned Big Ben, who once again is talking about his coaches, but this time he's defending his head coach, Mike Tomlin. Ben said he disagreed with the perception that Tomlin didn't give the Steelers the necessary discipline for its playoff run. He said that the Steelers were focused and ready to go before their loss to the Jaguars, but they just weren't the best on that day. Nick, what was your reaction to that?
I mean, it's good to hear from Big Ben. It's hard to mesh a lot of Big Ben's comments with other Big Ben comments. Like, one of the reasons that people have wondered if Mike Tomlin has full control of this team, if Mike Tomlin runs too loose of a ship, is because of comments Ben Roethlisberger has made. And, to be fair, because of some of the actions the team has let Ben Roethlisberger do over the course of a long time, even before Mike Tomlin was there, I suppose right before he got there, without much penalty. So it's good that he's supporting his head coach. It always felt to me like his issue was not with Mike Tomlin. It was more directly with Todd Haley. Todd Haley's now gone. Big Ben seems to be in better spirits. But a lot of the reason there was ever a discussion about are they focused? Are they locked in? Are they too undisciplined? Is because of things Big Ben has said in this very same radio spot that he now said this.
It's a bunch of other things through the years, okay? Big Ben could have alleviated some things in press conference, but when your coach is on the field, when Baltimore's running down for a kickoff, all right, that's one of many things. Bad coaching decisions in critical spots, all right? Players on Facebook Live. What did Ben have to do with that? Like, what do you got to do with Antonio Brown taping the coach talking? What's Ben supposed to do? So there have been so many situations about Pittsburgh, their assistant coaches, their head coaches, the national anthem that had nothing to do with Big Ben. Now, could Big Ben have helped the situation? Yeah, but Pittsburgh, there's been too many fires to put out. Yeah, it's easy to blame it on the quarterback because he does have a speaking role. The thing that I learned under Denny Green, and the one thing that we did as players, we made sure that people understood that Denny wasn't going to be the blame. So Denny, as the head coach, Tomlin as the head coach, he is the general. But us as veteran players and leaders of our group, we're lieutenants. So we're supposed to run our part of the team. And that's what Pittsburgh doesn't have. They don't have a good lieutenant at running back. You know why they're running back? Because he's always talking about himself. They don't have a good lieutenant at quarterback. You know the reason why? The quarterback's always complaining. Don't know when I'm going to play. Don't know why they should have called that play right there. They don't have a great lieutenant in AB. Why? Because he's about himself. Facebook Live. Right. They don't have a lot of veterans on the defense who have a speaking part. So they got a lot of dysfunctions going around Pittsburgh, and they've been there for several years.
Could you argue that dysfunction works for them, works in their favor?
I think they overcome it. I don't think it's a positive, but I don't think it's as much as...
Yeah, that's why we're not talking about them today. They overcame it. They lost to Jacksonville at home.
You hold on. It can't be that simple. It can't simply
Well, what's it about then?
That Jacksonville was better that day. How about that?
Oh, well, they played them twice.
Yeah.
In Pittsburgh.
Right, but
Jacksonville was better both days.
Oh, okay, sure, but it wouldn't have mattered that the first game wouldn't have mattered had they won the second game.
It does matter when you're trying to talk about the talented teams. What did they do when they faced this team? Mm-hmm. All right? Jacksonville crushed them. You know what they said when we're getting ready to face them again? Hey, Jenna, I ain't worried about y'all. I'm worried about my next match. Y'all ain't even that serious. And they lost again.
I understand that.
And I told you this was going to happen. I told you they would be distracted.
Yeah,
I told you
you told me it was going to happen up until
before the season in Chicago when they had the dispute over the national anthem. I told you this would continue.
Correct. And you did, CC, but you also, like me and everyone, picked the Steelers to beat the Jags. Thought they would overcome that. You also, like me, after the New England game, said Pittsburgh was the better team. They just didn't win the game. Those things happened.
I didn't say Pittsburgh was a better team. I said Pittsburgh played well enough to win the game. Jesse James did not help. I don't get into that. I don't play Madden. All right? It's not about no roster. It's who plays the game better between the lines.
Right. And that,
so I don't base everything on, oh, man, Pittsburgh's really, really talented. Well, how many Super Bowls have they won, this group?
This group?
This group.
This group's won one. I guess if you're saying this specific Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell has won 0.
0.
CC, but hold on. There's a lot to get into here. So if I may, you did say after the New England game that we both thought Pittsburgh was the better team that day, but didn't
more
win.
Talented.
Okay. Well, we could pull the tape, but we don't need to.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who plays the best. It doesn't matter who wins the game.
Agreed.
I thought Minnesota was a better team than Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
You know what they're doing now?
They're home.
Okay.
But it's not, the teams can, the point that I was making when Jenna asked if it helps them, and I said they overcome it, is Pittsburgh.
What have they overcome? Where are their trophies at?
Can I please try to explain it to you?
Go ahead.
You can overcome certain things and still not become Super Bowl champions. Do you think if the Steelers had no distractions this year, they're playing in this game? Maybe.
Yes.
Because
distractions help. They lack of distractions help you reach your goal. Yes.
Agreed, lack of distractions help you reach your goal. But that doesn't, you could have a distraction-free season like Minnesota did and still just get beat.
Well, they had a miracle. They had a miracle that happened. They were trying to recover from the miracle.
Okay, they could have lost the miracle game. Right? At home, and got beat.
But it wouldn't have been a team thing. It wouldn't have been like, man, is Minnesota focused? They didn't have the type of thing. They went through 2 or 3 different quarterbacks the last couple of years, but they managed. Mm-hmm. So I don't like making excuses for people, all right? These are professional people, all right? They don't do it the right way, and the results are, in the postseason, they're not there. You can make excuses for them if you want to.
CC, I'm not making excuses for them.
You think Mike Tomlin's happy with the team and the productivity the last 3 years?
I think every team that has this level of talent doesn't win the Super Bowl is disappointed. I also think that when you say there's this group no success, well, they have more regular season and playoff success from a wins perspective than any team but New England.
So did Peyton Manning. Can you cash them at the bank?
What do
the
you
regular season wins.
I said regular season and playoff than any team but New England. I understand they haven't finished it off, but to attribute it simply to, because they had a national anthem controversy in week 5.
No, Nick. It's been many a things, and I've just been trying to tell you. You're just slow to the learn.
No, I'm not slow to the learn, CC.
You like Pittsburgh.
What?
You like Mike Tomlin.
Sure.
You like Le'Veon Bell.
But, I mean, I think he's a great player. I mean, it's not like I have a personal relationship with any of these guys.
To me, I just believe that the small things when you're on a team are far more important than talking about their talent. They are underachievers.
Yeah, okay, but this is, in my eyes, this is a results-based analysis. You know which team did the small things terribly? The 95 Cowboys, who were partying all week, including the head coach having all-night parties the week of the Super Bowl. But it was fine because they won the game. There are plenty of teams in sports history that have dealt with distractions and become champions. And there are plenty of teams that have been totally buttoned up, that have had no distractions and got their ass kicked.
Let me know in the last 10 years the teams that have been distracted and won championships. I want you to make a list.
Seattle, the first year they won the championship. The second year they were this close.
What were their distractions? Tell me, what were their distractions?
Okay, well, they had a quarterback change before the season, if I'm not mistaken, with Matt Flynn to Russell Wilson.
Oh, that's not a distraction. One guy's better than the other guy.
Okay,
but go ahead.
Marshawn Lynch and his general disposition towards the entire team, that was not just the final year he was there, CC.
Yeah, he was one person.
Okay, so if
that was one person.
CC, it's going to be very different.
And they end up being Super Bowl champions and would have been twice Super Bowl champions if they had given the ball to the crazy guy.
Exactly.
It wasn't attitude, though.
Huh?
That was a coach. It wasn't attitude that prevented them.
Okay, well, I'm not
The coach made a play. He made the wrong call for them winning 2 Super Bowls.
Right. And
that wasn't the attitude, all right? It wasn't the distractions in the locker room.
Okay, well, listen, it's going to be very hard for me to convince you of this if when I give you examples, you say they don't count. But the point is, there are teams across sports, including football, that did, what do we think about the Bears, the 85 Bears? They
weren't distracted. They had the best defense in the history of the National Football League.
Which is why
what were they distractions? What were the distractions?
Am I crazy that
I was in college then. Let me know what the distractions were.
The Giants with LT. How about that? Were there distractions when the best player on the team shows up for practice when he wants, when he has? Of course there were, but they overcame it. It's not a positive.
Listen, let me tell you something. The rumors of LT not showing up to practice when he wants, those are lies. Okay?
Okay, well then he lied in his own book.
I mean, those are lies.
Now that the NBA season is heating up, I wanted to talk about another podcast we do at Fox Sports, and that's Chris Broussard's In the Zone. Each week, Chris breaks down what's trending in the NBA and the biggest names in the league. Previous guests include Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Shaq, John Wall, and myself. So if you love the NBA, make sure to subscribe to In the Zone wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, guys, baseball news this morning is non-baseball news this morning. For the 6th straight year, Barry Bonds, baseball's home run king, and Roger Clemens, a 7-time Cy Young winner, were both not voted into the Hall of Fame. Statistically, Bonds and Clemens are clearly two of the sport's giants, but their paths to stardom littered with steroid allegations. If it means anything to you, they did get their highest vote percentage, but it wasn't enough to get in. Both a bit less than 20% of the vote away from reaching Cooperstown. CC, would you vote for Bonds and Clemens to get into the Hall of Fame if it was up to you?
Did they use steroids?
Let's say yes.
No.
Yes. Really?
Absolutely not. Because I know it changes the competitive balance in sports. You're talking about a huge advantage if a person is using growth hormones or steroids to assist them in what they're doing. The playing field is not level. So if the playing field is not level, why would I vote them into Cooperstown? Like, if they've got some type of advantage over the other players, like, why would I put them in? Like, if the Hall of Fame is supposed to be the Hall of Fame, then why would I? Like, this is not that difficult of a question for me.
Wow. You say all the time not to try to guess what you're going to say on things that I shouldn't, but I'm shocked by this one.
Why would I let someone that's made life easier get into a place that's supposed to be an hallowed place? Like, why would I do that?
Go ahead, John.
What about some of these players that were pretty much could have been locked into the Hall of Fame before they started doing steroids?
Well,
Barry Bonds was on pace
that was their choice.
Okay, so it was the decision to do steroids.
So if you go your whole life and you decide not to drink, and then one night you decide to tie one on, and you get in your car and you have a car accident, and it ends up hurting people, do you think your past record is going to help you out from that decision that you made that night?
Well, but hold on a second. First of all, the idea that we're going to keep baseball players out of the Hall of Fame because they did things to enhance their performance, we have to redo the entire Hall of Fame. We have to take out...
You mean redo the whole Baseball Hall of Fame?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame. We have to take out all the guys that scuffed baseballs, it was just a wink and a nod. We have to take out the guys that got in on famous spitballs. We have to take out the guys they used to have in the clubhouses, 2 coffee pots, one with uppers in it, one without uppers in it. And we have to take out a lot of guys who made it in the Bonds-Clemens steroid era, who we believe likely did steroids, but we can't prove it. Just like, by the way, you can't prove it on Barry. You can't prove it on Roger, even though we know they did steroids. Like, they haven't conceded to it. They haven't admitted to it. But the Hall of Fame...
If they were Hall of Famers before this, let's just say that's the case. They had Hall of Fame career before that. Why did they use steroids?
Oh, I'll tell you why Barry Bonds did it. I'll tell you why. Because Barry Bonds was the best baseball player alive, and he was better than Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa for their entire lives. And then all of a sudden, he sees these 2 guys become the face of the sport artificially, and he said, okay, you know what? Then I'm going to show you...
So you're going to risk your overall health using steroids just so you can keep up with Sammy Sosa and them?
Well, I think that's clearly what he did.
Okay, well, no problem. Then you don't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
Man, the Hall of Fame, it has to be, to me, you walk into a sports Hall of Fame. If I am willing to spend however many days it takes to go through the entire place, I need to be able to learn the entire history of that sport. And to keep out the single greatest player of all time in Barry Bonds, it's dishonoring the fans. Put on his plaque, suspected of steroids. Put on his plaque, known to use steroids. Like, that is part of the history of it.
Yeah, that's a great example to kids. You know something? You want to be a high achiever? We'll let you use steroids. It doesn't even matter. But what kind of message are we sending to young people? What about working hard? What about I'm getting ready to work harder than the next guy? Because that's where I come from. Mm-hmm. I get up early and I stay late. And I'm not going to help or benefit someone who's going to take the easy route. Because you still have to work out anyway. So for someone that's going to take the shortcut, to me, they will never be able to win me over when you're talking about elite achievers.
Sissy, you say, what are we going to tell the kids? Like, in history class, do we not teach, when we're teaching about American presidents, do we skip over Nixon because he got impeached? It's part of American history. We have the good and the bad. You can't tell the history of baseball without 7-time MVP Barry Bonds.
Yeah, and you can't tell the history of Barry Bonds without saying that his career was enhanced by performance-enhancing drugs.
Absolutely. So you just think it's just
well, go ahead and live with it.
A flat disqualification.
Absolutely. You are done. Done, because you got a huge advantage. I don't think you understand what steroids do to your body. It gives you a huge advantage on your ability to be able to recover every single day. So you know what you can do? You can work like a maniac like Jenna every single day. Your body doesn't build up the lactic acid, so your ability to be able to recover is drastically better than the next guy who's just going out there grunting. Guys out there just trying to worry about his hydration, worrying about his sleep. People who use growth and anabolic steroids have a huge advantage.
Cece, I do understand that.
Oh, okay, we'll just let them in.
If it were just a couple guys, then maybe I would understand the argument. But
you didn't ask me about a bunch of guys. You asked me about these two. That was the question.
Agreed, but let me finish, please. But it's because they played in an era where it was dozens upon dozens.
I played in
the
era, Nick. Mm-hmm. I don't use the excuse. There was hundreds of guys suspended from the NFL over steroids. I don't use that excuse. I had the same opportunity. I knew what was going on, but I decided to stick to grunt. You know what? I'm going to get up at 6. My trainer going to call me. We're going to hit the track at 6. We're going to lift weights after that. We're going to do yoga after that. We're going to also use all natural products. We're going to remove all the other artificial stuff from your diet. You're getting ready to do all that kind of stuff. Yes, that's what I did. I knew there was guys using steroids, but I chose not to because I knew it was important. It was important for me to be able to get everything I got out of what God gave me, not out of what some needle gave me, only what God gave me. And I worked as hard as I could, all right? I mean, I wish I was as good as Jerry Rice. I wasn't. But I guarantee if I had taken some steroids, I guarantee my numbers would have been a lot different. Okay, so no. If you utilize steroids, no. It's a huge advantage? Absolutely no.
What? Just real quick before we go, why didn't you?
Because I didn't need it. Because I didn't need it. Because I believe in elbow grease. That's what I believe in, getting up and working hard. That's what I believe in. And I believe every man should be measured on that, on an equal playing field. I love Tom Brady. If I heard anything about, man, Tom Brady used steroids, man, get him out of there. Absolutely. Any other great player. Now, y'all can do what y'all want in baseball. But in the National Football League, you have some steroids, that's a huge advantage. And there's too many of us that got up early, busted our butt, did all the right stuff, that, no, I'm not going to give you my graces. You don't deserve to get in here. If it's a special place, heck no. Get out of here with that mess, man. I wish I'd have seen that before the show.
Wow.
Okay,
wow.
quickly, before we go, did they get in or not?
They'll eventually get in, and I would vote for them, but that was awesome. Like, I've never disagreed with someone so much, but enjoyed hearing it more than I just did that.
Yep.
As Cleveland gets ready for the Spurs tonight in San Antonio, we get ready to discuss yet more drama surrounding this Cavs team. According to reports, the team held another meeting to air out their grievances. The airing of the grievances, it's like Festivus. Many of the issues were directed at that guy right there, Kevin Love, as players reportedly questioned his illness Saturday night, where he left the game early and never showed up for practice the next day. Nick, What do we think about Kevin Love? Is trading this player out of the question?
Trading Kevin Love is not out of the question. But before I get more in depth on that, I would like just quickly to ask you a question, Chris. How rare is it to question another guy's injury or illness amongst players, not just in whispers,
on your own team,
but on your own team, and to question it strongly enough that it is brought up in not just, hey, I think he's fake. Like,
right.
Hey, man, I don't think you were sick yesterday.
And there's so many games in the NBA that if you want to get a game, like the coach, the organization will give you a game. It's very, very rare that you would question a guy if we're not all in together. Like, so yes, it is a big indictment against an athlete.
Okay, that's where I was coming from. I wanted Chris has more authority to let the audience know how big of a deal that is in any professional sport to publicly say, well, I guess they did it privately, but they knew it would likely get out. Man, we think you were faking. We think you dogged it. You left the stadium, didn't show up the next day. And then something else interesting happened yesterday. After this team meeting, Ty Lue didn't go to practice because he had a doctor's appointment. That's an odd thing. Like,
the flu's going around.
I get that, but I also, the juxtaposition of those two things, it made me feel like maybe an additional message was being sent. But to answer the question, is it on the board they trade Kevin Love? It is absolutely on the board they trade Kevin Love. It has been on the board they trade Kevin Love every year since he's gotten there.
Yes.
And I know we like to assign anything wrong with the Cavs to LeBron. Or LeBron's the GM, LeBron's the head coach, LeBron's the leader. Kevin Love needs to have a moment where he recognizes, man, you are the custodian of your own talent and your own career. When LeBron got to Cleveland and they traded for you, in that moment, you were a better NBA player than Kyrie Irving. The fact that Kyrie went one way and you went the other is not LeBron's fault, is not the organization's fault. Had Kevin Love been the Kevin Love he was in Minnesota, he would have been the second option. He could have easily been the second option. That's not the way things went. And the fact that Kevin Love has only really seemed to look like that Kevin Love when there was no competition for second option, and as soon as Isaiah Thomas comes back, he shrinks back into this meek, underachieving Kevin Love. That's an indictment on Kevin Love himself. And I'm not saying you can't fix it. I'm not saying he can't get over it. But that's one of the reasons Kevin Love finds himself on the trade block.
Nick, I got to totally disagree with you. He's on the trade block because it's LeBron's team, and everyone on that roster is tradable except LeBron. Like, if they're trying to improve, every player has to be looked at as an asset to be able to try to not only improve the team, but also they need to keep LeBron there beyond this year. Kevin Love, to me, is just like Chris Bosh. Yeah, Chris Bosh was a better player in Toronto, but the only player who actually really got better who was a starter, and the reason why is because he was a ball handler and a tremendous scorer, is Kyrie Irving. Dwayne Wade, when LeBron got with him, he did not get better. He had to acquiesce. Chris Bosh did not get better. And Kevin Love has been, and I had a conversation with Kevin Love when he tore up his shoulder in the Celtics series several years ago, when they were trying to decide, is Kevin Love going to come back? And as a huge Cavs fan, I had a personal conversation with him. Man, I would love for you to come back, man. Are you going to come back and get healthy and be able to stay with the Cavs? He said, I hope to finish my career here with LeBron so that we can win a couple championships. He personally told me that. So for me, I've seen this before with Chris Bosh. Because all these other players, they have to make tremendous changes to be able to play with LeBron.
Here, just the one quick distinction I'm going to draw. When Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade and LeBron teamed up together, Bosh was clearly the third best player of the three. You had LeBron, the best player in the world, D. Wade, one of the 4 or 5 best players in the world at the time.
You can say Kevin Love's stats were better than Kyrie Irving, but you can't say he was a better player, especially partnered with LeBron. Who is a better partner with LeBron, Kevin Love or Kyrie Irving? Kyrie Irving is, and also being younger. He can get buckets on his own. And with LeBron being a fabulous passer, besides Kevin being a spot-up, knockdown shooter, the advantage is to Kyrie Irving playing with LeBron compared to Kevin Love.
So the time we saw Kevin Love play his best was when he was the second option. IT was coming off the bench when they were trying to just sort of mix him in a little bit. He wasn't even on the bench yet. Yeah. He wasn't back yet from his hip injury. He played great. He was happy. LeBron was happy. Cavs run off a 19-2 run. Everything is great in Cleveland. But then he becomes the third option because they're pushing for IT to get his minutes, and they want him to recover, and they want him to slowly recover, and they're going to keep pushing him. As you said, he's the superstar. What happens if they get rid of Kevin Love and IT's never the guy that they want him to be? This could have been
a disaster.
Right. It could have been a more prolific contribution to the team, and you get rid of him. Is there a conversation to be had to just wait and see at the end of the season what happens with IT? Is this the only problem? Is this the reason
if you wait and see, you could lose LeBron.
Okay. You mean LeBron would rather lose Kevin Love and just keep going back to IT
I can't
every
answer
night?
that part, but they have to have players there long-term outside of Kevin Love and IT to keep LeBron in Cleveland. Why would he stay there with the same cast of guys?
And I want to...
Because they won. He won with that.
But no. He didn't win with IT.
No, I'm saying with Kevin Love.
It's right because the team... Right. Listen, Kevin Love is going to get a disproportionate share of blame typically. This time, if the team believes he faked an illness, then the blame is totally proportionate.
Yeah, what about the rest of them guys faking playing defense?
Okay, so I'm glad
they sound like a bunch of babies. They got team meetings, and then now because a guy says he's sick, like, I've watched them play, and it's a bunch of Cavs are sick on the court.
Okay, well, that's why I'm glad you brought that up. But the biggest problem with the Cavs is not Kevin Love right now. The biggest problem with the Cavs is Jay Crowder's been awful, and he's started the whole year.
Don't forget your boy. Don't forget your boy.
Let me finish.
Don't forget
A.Smith is having the worst year of his career. J.R. had personal issues last year and an injury. He hasn't seemed to recover from it. Tristan Thompson, they were better when he was hurt than they've been since he's been healthy. All those are three key rotational players who were starters when the year began.
So why are you getting rid of this guy?
Well, I don't know that they are getting rid of him.
It's just a conversation, but also Kevin Love is the most valuable. He would fetch the biggest price.
The most for him, but he seems to be the one, except for this little stretch, that's actually contributing.
But it's all,
and all those other guys aren't.
That's all fair, but Kevin Love is also the one they've always wondered, can he play against the Warriors?
Yes. Does not match up well with Golden State.
Because of his defensive limitations. But by the way, the one guy whose name we didn't mention as possible could get traded, Isaiah Thomas. His tenure with the Cavs could be very short. Like, Cece's right. Everyone but LeBron and D-Wade, because he's LeBron's guy, is tradable for the Cavs right now. Every single person on the roster. Hey, guys, it's Nick Wright. Thank you so much for listening to the First Things First podcast. But before the show moves along, I want to tell you about another great podcast available from Fox Sports. It's the Maybe I'm Crazy podcast with Joy Taylor. You know my friend Joy from Undisputed, but on Maybe I'm Crazy, she's breaking down the biggest stories in the world of sports in only a way Joy Taylor can. Does any other podcast beside Maybe I'm Crazy have loser power rankings? I don't think so. So check out the Maybe I'm Crazy podcast with my pal JT every week from Fox Sports.
Back here on First Things First, lost in the shuffle over the weekend. Classic case of he said, he said. Rockets beat the Warriors 116-108. After the game, Rockets center Clint Capella said Houston is better than the Warriors. He also said he likes my art project better than your art project. Kevin Durant responded to Capella's comments yesterday. Take a listen.
You hear that from the guys like Capella, you know, usually he's catching the ball and laying it up from CP or James Harden. So his job is not as hard. I mean, when your job is that hard, you know you can't just come out there and say like that. You know what I'm saying? So I don't expect that from CP and James and Ariza and the rest of the guys because they know how hard it is to come out there and do that every night. Capella, I mean, he catch and dunk every night, so it's pretty easy for him.
I will tell you one thing about the NBA this season. It's just the season that keeps on giving and giving, and we have something to talk about every single day. Well, let's jump on Kevin Durant. What was your reaction to Durant's comments, Nick?
Kevin Durant is the perfect person to talk about this because he might be the world's most foremost expert in finding the easier way to do something and then finding a voice because of it. I didn't hear any of this type of commentary from Kevin Durant back when he had a really hard job. Back when his job was leading Oklahoma City in a tough Western Conference against teams such as Golden State. And ever since Kevin Durant has gotten to a place where it's great when he's great, and he's usually great, but it's not necessary when he's great. When he's got, I would argue, the easiest job of any top-tier NBA superstar, now he's found his voice. And I guess good for him, but for him to knock Clint Capella and say Clint Capella's job is easy, I don't think that's fair to Capella, and I think it's very rich coming from KD.
Well, Capella said that they were better than Golden State. So whatever you say about Capella afterwards is because he's the one opened up his mouth. You know, like, yeah, oh, we're better than Golden State. Well, how many times have you made a contribution against Golden State? Have you ever played Golden State in a series? So I'm looking at the comment. I don't have any problem with Kevin Durant because Capella's job is easier. It's the truth. So a lot of times we say, oh, man, I like the guy to tell the truth. Capella has a lot easier job than all the other stars, all right, that have the main role. Yes, go ahead.
No, please. No. Please finish. Go ahead.
I mean, because I don't see anything with it. Now, I understand people have something against Kevin Durant. They asked him the question, what do you think about Capella? Thinking they're better. Well, his job's a lot easier. Yeah, he could say that. Yeah, he could. But when we get into a series, Chris Paul and James Harden, they're going to because I would be more surprised if it came from them because they realize how hard this is going to be. I don't have a problem with Durant's comments. And Capella, they're not better than Golden State. So I don't know why he said that.
He's talking about that the Rockets have confidence they can beat Golden State, which it's good that some team right now in the league does have confidence they can beat Golden State.
But what sense does it make for Capella to say right now we're better than Golden State? What does it do?
I mean, it's probably...
I'm sure it helped out Jacksonville this final week because this is the same type of thing. Oh, we're going to beat them. We're going to beat them.
You know what?
It's so easy to say.
I understand it's easy to say, but Durant's response to it, he's asked about Capella saying the Rockets are better than Golden State. He takes a personal shot at what Capella's role is on the Rockets.
What's wrong with that?
It's fine. It's totally within his right.
It's fine if it's not Kevin Durant.
Well, Kevin Durant's the only player in the league the only superstar in the league that has consistently this year and last year said things like this. Durant, I'm not sure why, but he has gotten on this level of things. Like, I don't think you disagree with that. We are seeing things from KD, from his commentary.
Yes, but I don't see anything in these comments. Capella's job is easier than the superstar players. He is a role player. Will we agree on that?
Of course, but you don't...
And most people don't even know him. But he's having a tremendous season. Most people don't even know him as a player.
Sure, but you don't see the irony in Kevin Durant saying it's easy. You can talk when things get easier for you. Like, you don't see the irony there when Kevin Durant, who more so than any...
Kevin Durant had the choice, Nick. He was a free agent.
Of course he was.
He went where he wanted to work and play basketball. Sure. And there's nothing wrong with that, all right? That's not criminal.
No one's saying it's criminal. I'm asking you if you see the irony in it. And maybe
Kevin Durant was a free agent. Yes. Where do you want to work and where do you want to play basketball?
Right.
I don't want to play with Russell anymore. He made the best decision for his career, and it's worked.
Sure, it has. And
it's worked.
Absolutely. And you know one of the reasons it's worked? Because it was the easiest option. So for him then to knock a guy who he's saying has an easy job, who, by the way, I just want to make one thing very clear right now. Because Durant is the second best player in the world. There's no denying that. I get all that. If right now, today, we found out, God forbid, Kevin Durant was done for the year, the Warriors would wake up tomorrow still as the favorites to win the title. If right now, today, we found out Clint Capella was done for the year, the Rockets' title chances go to 0.
Kevin Durant they would not be the favorite if he was hurt. Houston would be the favorite if Kevin Durant was hurt.
Could they still win the title if Kevin Durant was hurt?
No, they cannot win the title because they don't have any bench anymore. That's what they sacrificed. They sacrificed the big man and they sacrificed the bench when they got Kevin Durant.
So is your issue with what he said or that he said it?
I don't understand the question. I'm sorry.
Well, are you issued with the fact that he needed to say something that didn't need to be said?
I don't have an issue. I just find it hilarious. I mean, I'm not mad at him about it. I just find of all the players in sports right now to have an expert opinion about you're more likely to talk a little wilder when your job gets easier. Kevin Durant knows that firsthand. He talks a lot wilder ever since his job got easier. Like, that is something we know. And you've talked about it. He is his persona and personality have changed from what we saw in Oklahoma
LeBron's
City.
job got easier when he left Cleveland to go with Chris Bosh and D. Wade.
Agreed.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely
So we're in the same. We're talking about the same thing.
I guess I just miss LeBron talking about a role player.
But LeBron's job got easier too.
Absolutely.
All right. He didn't have no titles before he partnered with the other guys and made his job easy.
Agreed. I guess I just missed when LeBron in that era was talking about Chris Mim. Like maybe I missed it.
All right, finally, LeBron James became one of 7 players in NBA history to score 30,000 points and the youngest player to join the exclusive club. However, Cavs lost to an undermanned Spurs team. LeBron spoke about the accomplishment after the game.
This is a special moment. It's something I never set out to do. You know, I'm not even like a score-first guy when it comes to playing basketball. I love getting my teammates involved and seeing my teammates be excited about scoring and me getting assists and things of that nature. But for me to sit here and be the youngest player to ever reach 30,000, it's just, I put a lot of work into my game, and it's been a byproduct of that.
CeCe, how impressive is 30,000 points?
Oh, it's very impressive. And LeBron, he might not have set out his goal as for 30,000 points, but his goal was to be the best basketball player ever. And there's no way he'd ever be in the breath of the top 5 basketball players ever unless he gets to 30,000 points. So that was going to be along the journey. The thing that's most impressive of all the 7 guys on the list, LeBron is the only natural. My first instinct is to pass the basketball. These other guys, man, they were born to score the basketball. I mean, let's go down the list, Nick. Who's number 1?
Kareem.
The most unstoppable offensive player. Number 2, who?
Karl Malone.
Karl Malone.
Just 25 points every night for 15 years.
Number 3.
Kobe.
Kobe, stop it. Kobe was in the womb getting buckets, turnarounds, everything. Next,
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jeffrey Jordan. That speaks for itself. And we could go on and on.
Well, the next 2, Wilt, who had a 100-point game and averaged 50, and then Dirk, the greatest shooting big man ever.
Yes, so LeBron and his overall unselfishness to be on this list, it's not about longevity. It's truly amazing. And if you compiled the assist of the other 6, you would be astonished at just how good LeBron has been and unselfish to be on this. These are not things that go together, being unselfish and being one of the top 7 scorers that's ever played in the NBA.
And listen, he'll pass Dirk later this year. He'll pass Wilt and Michael Jordan next year. And so, I mean, he might not get to Kareem. I think he will get to Kareem, but the worst he finishes is top 3 scorers all time. He's, as CeCe mentioned, the unselfishness. He's the youngest to get to 30,000. He's the only player ever to get to 30,000 points, 7,000 rebounds, 7,000 assists. And I'm confident that's something no one else will ever do. Like that volume of scoring combined with that volume of rebounding and assists, it's remarkable. But the most, and I know the Cavs are in a bad way right now. They're going to have to make changes. LeBron's been part of that. But if we're just going to go from 30,000 feet, if I may, and look at his career, the most impressive thing to me about LeBron James is he was the most hyped high school athlete I've ever seen. And certainly of this era, of an era of a 24/7 sports radio, television networks, social media, all of that. And not only did the hype not crush him, not only did he not fail to meet the hype, he somehow exceeded the hype. The most hyped prep athlete ever exceeded all of the hype. And a guy who grew up in a tough situation, moving around, was a single mother who had her own issues, to never have a scandal, to never have an arrest. Man, I would say there's maybe only one person on this desk that can say they've never had a run-in with the police. It's hard to go. I mean, I don't know. Maybe. Oh, I didn't know, Jenna. Do you know how hard it is to be in the public eye for 35 years, 33 years, or I guess 23 years for him, and never have run in with the police, never have some awful tabloid incident. His biggest scandal was a premature pep rally and a press conference that people didn't like.
That he gave the money away to charity.
Right. The biggest black mark on his career ended with $4 million for the Boys and Girls Club. It's remarkable. It has been one of the most remarkable child celebrity stories outside of sports that we've ever seen. And when you have these moments to look at it and see what he's accomplished,
it's nice. I didn't think about it.
It's really unreal.
It's great, Nick. All right, at some point in the not-too-distant future, speaking of superstar athletes, the name Tom Brady will be used as an adjective describing excellence at any level, at any age. Here, I'll use it in a sentence. Hey, Deanna, you were so Tom Brady in your music class today. The Patriots quarterback is heading to a record 8th Super Bowl, his 3rd in 4 years. He's on pace, if he hasn't already, to secure himself as the greatest quarterback of all time. CC, I'll start with you. Is Tom Brady the greatest athlete of all time?
Wow, this is very, very difficult because we've given him the title of the greatest quarterback. Now, the problem with athlete, you start getting into, well, who's more athletic?
Or skill sets, yeah.
And it's really, really hard. It's hard to compare the greatest basketball player, me ever, Michael Jordan, with Tom Brady being the greatest quarterback. Because I could go to Jim Brown. Jim Brown, we as Hall of Famers consider him to be the greatest of the Hall of Famers for what he accomplished. Now, Tom Brady, he has taken his game and as a Hall of Famer to new standards because of longevity. So you're going to have to be able to consider that. Basketball players, though, they play offense and they play defense. I mean, the Patriots have won a few championships by a guy kicking the ball and by guys intercepting the ball. Like Tom Brady was actually sitting on the sideline and got championships. So to me, it's hard to compare him to people like Jordan, to people like Muhammad Ali as boxers, because you got to be offensive and defensive. So he's there. I don't like to separate him. I would not like to say he's the greatest athlete ever. I think that he is in the breadth of the 5 greatest athletes that I've been able to see in my lifetime. But when you talk about all-round athletes, because I asked Jim Brown this question. Jim Brown, who's the greatest football player? He shocked me, knocked me off my feet. He told me...
Amendola.
Yes, Jim Thorpe. I was like, oh, my goodness. Hadn't even thought about him. I mean, these guys played both ways. He was an unbelievable athlete who happened to play football. So Tom Brady is in that breath. What we're seeing from the time he's turned 30 to whenever he quits, I believe will make him very, very special. And, yes, he will always be in the conversation of the greatest of the greats.
To stay on Brady for a second here, what's so amazing about Brady being in this discussion, he's the only person in the who is the greatest athlete of all time discussion who's not a great athlete. Like, who's not, by that I mean, he doesn't have amazing, natural, some people would call them God-given physical traits. Like, he is not incredibly fast. He doesn't, Mark Schlereth yesterday said he knows he won the genetic lottery. He's touched by the hand of God to get some certain things. We look at certain guys. Jim Brown, for example. People don't know this. He's the greatest lacrosse player ever. They had to change the rules.
Yes.
Like, when he retired from 2 sports, is the best ever in those sports. You look at a guy like LeBron, LeBron could have been amazing at a bunch of sports. Like, maybe not the best in the world at them. So Brady doesn't have those physical gifts.
No.
And he's got more physical gifts than I do. But compared to the guys that is in the discussion, look at how he ran at the combine. Look at what he was in college.
Right. I would say that how he throws the football and his ability to be accurate is a gift.
Sure. Agreed. But do you understand what I'm saying? Like, the athleticism.
He can throw the football and as accurate as Steph can shoot the ball.
Sure, and Steph's another guy that I would say is not an amazing natural athlete, like compared to these other people. So he's in the club, like along with Wayne Gretzky. That's a guy you got to consider. I would say people get mad like Barry Bonds when we're talking about like teams, guys that could do all things. Go ahead.
You're the kind of guy that doesn't like to compare apples to oranges ever. And this is one of the perfect examples where you got to keep these guys in their own lane. Wayne Gretzky is the greatest hockey player I ever saw play, far and away. But you put him on a basketball court, you put him on a football field.
And,
we have to.
Yeah, and where Gretzky was compared to the second greatest player.
Of course.
You have to mention that. I mean, man, he was amazing.
Of course. And the talent level at this point where athletes are getting bigger and stronger and smarter and faster, to even be considered one of the greatest athletes at your position or within your sport is unbelievable enough. I think it's very hard to compare and cross over and say, well, who's the best athlete? LeBron has unbelievable gifts, the likes of which the strength, the mobility, the flexibility I've never seen. But who knows if he could do the same thing with his accuracy that Tom Brady could, or get a puck in a little area at the time. So I think these guys are definitely at the top of the game. I think it's very hard to say he's the greatest athlete.
Yeah, Tom's ability to perform at an advanced age will always have him in a very, very special class. His ability to be able to get his team in championship position will always have him in a very, very special class. I believe I said it yesterday or 2 days ago, Tom's going to win 7 Super Bowls. So when he's done, you're going to have to talk about him. Athletic, non-athletic, he will be part of all conversations when you talk about the greatest who have done it in all sports.
And the ability to stay healthy. Like, that's a huge, like, I give guys credit for that. The longevity is an enormous part of this. I know there's almost nothing more cliche in sports talk than Mount Rushmores, so allow me to do one quickly if I could. I try to think about this when we talk about the greatest athletes of all time. Like, what are some sports that have been going on forever?
Golf.
Since the beginning of time, since the beginning of time, people want to know who can win in a fight. So the greatest, to me, the greatest fighter of all time has to be on there. That's Muhammad Ali. Since the beginning of time, people have wondered, who's the fastest guy out here? Who can run, whether it's from lions or saber-toothed tigers or whatever? Usain Bolt. So he's got to be on there. I also want to be fair to all people. Who's the greatest female athlete of all time? Serena Williams. She's got to be on there. That leaves one spot for the greatest team athlete ever. Some people would have Michael Jordan. Some people would have Tom Brady. I have LeBron James. But Brady is in that discussion of all sports history. Is his face on the mountain? It damn well might be. And he's not done playing. It's remarkable.
All right. And finally, the NBA All-Star reserves were announced yesterday. Ton of notable names on the list. 2 Washington Wizards, 4 Golden State Warriors, a lion, a tiger, and a bear. Oh, my. Most notably not on the list, Andre Drummond, Lou Williams, and Paul George. Russell Westbrook was particularly fired up. Take a listen.
Unbelievable. I think it's just outrageous in my opinion. I think, I don't know who else made the team, but I know got guys, 4 people from one team, got guys, complaining about getting snubbed until they get in. You got guys that, just talking about it all the time, but the guys that deserve it should be in. It's not, I just don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. Guy that lead the league in steals, compete every night. Top 2 at his position. You know what I mean? It don't make any sense.
I love
All right, you could read between the lines and probably figure it out. Every single player and every single team who he's talking
about. We know he says 4 guys from one team. That's the Warriors. So that's a shot at Draymond and Clay. He says a guy complains about it, so he gets on. Dame, get the hell out of here, he's saying. And then the best one, top 2 at his position. Well, he plays small forward. LeBron plays small forward. Kevin Durant plays small forward. So he's either taking a shot at LeBron or Kevin Durant. I'm going to guess it's Kevin Durant he's taking a shot at there.
Him and LeBron are pretty cool.
Exactly.
Yeah, they got much respect.
Exactly right. So
was Paul George the biggest snub, though?
I think Paul George was snubbed. I think Paul George should have replaced one of those 4 Warriors, most notably Draymond Green. But I think the biggest snub was Lou Williams. Lou Williams is averaging 23 points a game, carrying the Los Angeles Clippers in a year where they are a half game out of the playoffs. He's been the NBA's leading scorer over the last month. He has 14 30-point games. And this 14 30-point games. 3 40-point games and a 50-point game. And, CeCe, this is where I'm going to be a little sentimental. For Lou Williams, it's cool. This is his one chance to make an All-Star game. If you make it, he gets introduced forever. Former NBA All-Star Lou Williams. Like, that's a chance for him. That's a cool thing for a guy that's not going to be a Hall of Famer, not a perennial All-Star. So I think Lou Williams and Paul George were the snubs.
Right. Draymond's the one that you bring into question in the West as far as the Warriors, because look at Klay's number. Klay has been amazing. Not only his points per game, his shooting average, shooting percentage from the field, from the free throw line, and from 3-point range has been amazing. So Draymond would be the one. But also you have to look, Andre Drummond. He's getting 15 rebounds a game. You're talking about he's one of the most improved players in the NBA. he got snubbed also. When you have an all-star team, you're always going to have some people who get snubbed or some people who get grandfathered in. But typically, people like Lou Williams, they typically get the short end.
Is part of this, though, quickly about more maybe a popularity contest, and Lou Williams doesn't have the same cachet that, say, like a Draymond Green has?
Well,
when it comes to fans
they're trying to reward winning.
The champions.
Go ahead.
The championships But Draymond hasn't had that type of all-star season, for the first half of the season. Lou Williams has been an all-star. He has earned it. And like Nick said, sometimes you have that great season and they let you in. Next year, with Lou Williams, we don't know. Like next year, he might be a sixth man. He'll be up for Sixth Man of the Year award.
Absolutely.
All right, this just in. Kevin Durant is having a drama-filled season. Oh, wait, hold on. That's been in for a while now. Another day, another gripe, apparently. If he's not mad at another player, he's mad at Twitter or teammates or the haters, or most recently, the refs. Last night, Durant was tossed from the game for arguing with the ref. His 4th ejection of the season. He's on pace for like 127 ejections this season. 8 is also a number I like to use. We spoke about it after the game.
He went to halftime probably with an attitude, so second half, his whole thing was like he's trying to get me. So look at my first tech. I got the rebound and I dribbled the ball hard and he teched me up. He was searching for me. He looking to try to take me up to get me back because he's still in his feelings from the first half. That's what's been going on around the league the whole year. It's a bunch of that, you know what I'm saying? So I got to keep my head a little bit, but I was upset. I'm a human being too. I get upset.
That's your man's.
Legit gripe,
That's
guys?
your man's. No, it's not legit gripe. This is okay. First of all, he's like, I dribbled the ball hard. He got upset because on the first tech because he didn't think he committed a foul, which he was right. The foul wasn't called on him. It was called on Kevin Looney, and he slammed the ball right in front of the ref. You're not always called for a tech on that, but you do get called for techs on that sometimes.
Yes.
That's how he got his first one. His second one, he went on and on for 25 seconds.
Yeah, he was eyeballing the ref, even on defense.
Circled the court.
Yes.
Draymond tried to pull him away. This is the end of a 20-second performance by Kevin Durant that started in the front court or on the other end of the basketball court. And for Kevin Durant to say he's out to get me. Well, I mean, KD, has he reffed all your games this year? I just want to show America Kevin Durant's ejections this year and where they rank in the NBA, because this is an embarrassment for the second best player in the world. Kevin Durant is in first place with 4 ejections. This is amongst teams, by the way. The rest of the Warriors are tied with him with 4. And then the next most team is the Rockets. Durant has more ejections than any other team in the league. Everyone's out to get me. It's not a conspiracy if they're really hunting for you. Give me, CC, that's your man's. Every day, this is your guy.
I mean, for one, he's not my guy.
Okay.
He's like you said, he's the second greatest basketball player. I'm a fan of basketball. I'm a fan of the way Golden State's played basketball. The style for which people said, no, you can't win in the NBA in doing that. But be who you are. Like, be authentic. What's Kevin Durant mad at the world about?
Why is he so mad?
I thought that when I made the shot in game number 3, I felt as if there was an exchange. From LeBron to me. Well, if you're the face of basketball around the world, Kevin, you're getting thrown out with less than a minute to go in a home game? Like, this is what the face of the basketball in the world, this is the responsibility now that you have since you have the torch? Like, okay, be responsible then. You're playing on Golden State. You're a world champion. You're MVP of the finals. Let's start acting like a KD. I need you to start acting like the real MVP, the one that your mom was proud about.
He plays every day like he's got a chip on his shoulder, but no one can figure out what the chip is.
There's nothing likable right now about Durant other than the way he plays basketball.
Reports are this morning that LeBron is miffed that the Cavs were unable to deal for Paul George or Eric Bledsoe this offseason, instead acquiring Isaiah Thomas. LeBron also reportedly aggressively recruited PG-13 to not only come to Cleveland, but stay there long term. But that didn't work. So let's kick off this morning's show with the question I asked you, Nick Wright. Is it starting to look like Isaiah might be the problem on this team?
So the reason we're asking, is Isaiah the problem, is because instead of getting Paul George, instead of getting Eric Bledsoe, they ended up with Isaiah Thomas. And you've got to recognize that when the Cavs traded for Isaiah Thomas, the people that cover the league on a daily basis said the big asset in the Kyrie Irving trade was not Jay Crowder, and it was not Isaiah Thomas.
Right.
It was the Nets pick. And so maybe that makes sense for the Cavs long term, but that's where a lot of LeBron's frustration comes from, is you trade away the second best player on our team, a guy we've won a championship with, and the big return is this nebulous asset that I may never see the fruits of. Even if I'm LeBron and I stay, it's very rare for a rookie to have a serious impact in his first couple years in the league. And LeBron's in year 15. So that's where the frustration begins. The frustration then builds when the immediate return, Jay Crowder, has his worst season. And then Isaiah Thomas, right after the trade, we find out injury worse than the Cavs thought. They go back to Boston. We want more than you initially gave us. Isaiah's not going to be ready till Christmas, even not ready at Christmas, not going to be ready until January. Now we're nearing the end of January. He doesn't yet look ready. So I don't think it's like Isaiah Thomas and his bristly personality or Isaiah Thomas and his lack of connection with Kevin Love. I think it's the whole situation where LeBron knows this might be his last year in Cleveland. LeBron knows his window of time as the best player in the world is at least approaching a close. Right. And what did they get for Kyrie Irving? Right now, not much. And when you see how well Paul George is playing, when you see you maybe could have gotten Paul George and Eric Bledsoe, it adds to the overall frustration.
It adds to the frustration that both of these guys forced trades. Eric Bledsoe forced his way out of Phoenix. Paul George, and let's go back to Bledsoe. Bledsoe and LeBron have some type of relationship. So it's not foreign. And this is not the first time that we're hearing about this. We heard Bledsoe might be available. We knew that Cleveland might be interested in getting him. They weren't able to do it. But if that sting didn't hurt enough, he also went from the West to the East. He went to Milwaukee. So LeBron, when he's sitting there looking, he's like, man, I wish we could have this guy. What a huge asset he'd be to the team. And then now he's made it harder on us because now he's in the East. Now, one of his rivals, Paul George, Indianapolis, they've had a bunch of battles in the playoffs. He's got a lot of respect for Paul George's game. Actually, Paul George elevated to the height of his basketball as far as people recognizing him against LeBron. Like, he played his best basketball in a couple series against LeBron James. So there's a great deal of respect there. He forced his way out of Indianapolis for basically a small price that it would take for an all-star player.
A small return, especially at the time, because we didn't know Oladipo was going to turn into this guy. The Cavs could have easily beaten that trade, and they were going to. It was Phoenix that held it up because they didn't want to trade away the number 4 pick.
Right. On paper, it looked like Cleveland had made a better offer than what they actually received for Paul George. So that would have frustration. Now we start the season. LeBron starts hurt. All right? He's able to overcome that. They have the great run that we talk about. But when you get into January, it's like, okay, IT's back. Now, what is our team really like? Crowder's having an awful year. JR's having an awful year. LeBron's got to make this life decision that it's not right now, but you have to look at it. And the number one part of the trade with IT is the asset that's still sitting on the shelf.
That he may or may not reap the benefits.
It's not helping LeBron. So, yes, he would be frustrated with their talent level. This is not a championship team. The deal for Kyrie Irving, I said 2 weeks ago that the Cavs, part of their problem was they missed Kyrie. So, yes, I'm not shocked that LeBron would be upset by where they are right now. And Isaiah not being healthy is part of the problem.
And I just want to add one thing, because I don't want it to be missed in the read you did leading into this. LeBron, if they got Paul George, wanted him to sign long-term. That debunks to a degree this idea that LeBron decided a year ago that this is going to be his final year in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think the majority of people who really have an ear on the situation would think that LeBron hadn't made up his mind. All this stuff that he was going to L.A., that was just That's just TV talk. That's just radio talk. There was really no insight that LeBron would just be going to L.A. just because he had a house there.
I agree with you, but a lot of the people watching the show get their information from TV talk and radio talk. So I just want to further amplify the idea that LeBron that was dead set on this being his last year in Cleveland headed into this year. I don't think there's any merit to it. Now, I don't think he was convinced he was staying forever either.
Right.
But when the Cavs make this trade, they were already planning for life without LeBron. And LeBron is sitting there, I believe, thinking, but you don't know if you're going to have life without me. What you do know is you have the best player in the world right now. Why would we not do everything we can to win championships right now rather than a contingency plan? And that's what that Brooklyn pick is.
Okay, but maybe they thought that's what they were doing, getting Isaiah Thomas, because it certainly looked like Isaiah Thomas was going to contribute a ton to any team, and maybe it was just an outlier year that he had last year. But I would ask you this, if, as you say, everything leads up to this February 8th trade deadline, and that's sort of your, line as to whether or not there are problems with the Cavs and not problems with the Cavs, because you think things are going to get set sort of when that day comes and goes, why, shy of doing this to let the world know that this team needs more, why would you want to contribute more to something that's already done and passed and finished? They didn't make the trade. This is what they have now. And maybe they trade something by February 8th, but this is their lot. So why come out with yet more friction on this team? Why every day something else has to be said to cause more conversations about what's wrong with the Cavs and not, hey, let's try to fix this?
Right. This is not something else coming out. This is just when people look at the situation and you wonder, okay, what could be some of the problems? Then you start to discover, wow, when you look at the team, Isaiah being hurt, the asset of the Brooklyn pick being on the shelf. I don't believe Cleveland was planning for life after LeBron James. I believe that with that pick, they thought that they might be able to parlay that into keeping LeBron. I didn't think that they ever thought they were going to keep that pick for the future, to build the team. Absolutely not. The idea was to be able to keep LeBron in Cleveland, and you can't do that without the Brooklyn pick being utilized on a player.
All right, so to answer your question quickly, and then I want to say one thing about Isaiah Thomas. Brian Windhorst is the man that reported this story. He's covered LeBron since LeBron was in high school. I know Brian a little bit. He's very good at his job. I do not believe that this is new information for Brian Windhorst. I think he knew this over the summer. LeBron wanted Paul George and Eric Bledsoe. And I think a lot of good journalists do, they have it's a long season. You have things in the chamber, and okay, if it isn't going well for the Cavs, this is a piece of information that I don't think it was this week LeBron called Windhorst and said, man, I didn't even want IT. So I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think that is.
Well, I think it's important for people to know.
This is not the first time this information has surfaced.
Sure. The timing of it is what was sort of
that Paul George was available, and LeBron had interest in getting Paul George.
The added nuance to this that Windhorst did on the podcast was that that is adding to the friction with Isaiah Thomas and LeBron. I do want to say one thing about Isaiah Thomas, and it's why I wouldn't sell all my Isaiah Thomas stock yet. We do have to recognize that even though these guys are pro athletes and famous people and celebrities, they're real human beings. And the last 9 months for Isaiah Thomas have been as difficult of an emotional ride as what any person could deal with. To go from your highest heights as a pro athlete to then within a span of 3 months, break your face, have a serious career-threatening hip injury, tragically and unexpectedly lose a sibling in a car accident, be traded from a team that you were thinking one day might retire your number, to then all of a sudden having to totally change your game to play with one of the most demanding players we've ever seen in a new city with a bigger expectation, arrow, or target on your back than ever before, that would be difficult for anyone to deal with. And he's doing all of it with the specter of, am I going to get that big contract hanging over him? So I think it might be a little much for us to expect the fully functional Isaiah Thomas already. I think that it still exists that he could get too close to the level he was last year. It's just a lot for him in these last 9 months.
All right, look, we all have bad moments. We all have things we wish we could have done or said differently. We all have moments in games when after getting a technical foul, we walk around staring aggressively at a ref, not letting it go even after other players hold you back, and then you get kicked out of a game. We all have that. Well, after Kevin Durant got ejected for an NBA high 4th time 2 nights ago, he said some not nice things about the ref that tossed him. Looking back on it, KD knows he was out of line.
I wasn't getting picked on last night. I was being a diva last night. I gotta just own up to it. I watched it when I got home. I was like, man, I was wondering why he was coming at me so hard. But then I watched the plays. I was like, yeah, I look like a jerk out there. Just yeah, it was bad. I mean, luckily we won and we can move past it, and I can kind of own up to it. So I'll be better next time.
Back out here on First Things First, CC, your thoughts?
I'm so glad that Kevin Durant and whoever his alter ego let him out of the cellar, out of the basement, and allowed Kevin Durant, because that's the Kevin Durant that I know. I know the coaches that coached him at Texas. I know the people that knew him at OKC. That's the Kevin Durant that I know. That's why I was so disappointed yesterday. You look like a jerk. Now, he's talking about I acted like a diva and everything. Yeah. It's very acceptable now that you're able to look at yourself and have some perspective.
Yeah.
Man, there's nothing I hate worse than people who don't have perspective, like on their own life. They don't even see like what they're doing and what it does to like their image. Like, you're not that guy, KD. Like, don't be that guy. So for me, it's very, very refreshing because I have made a bunch of mistakes, and a bunch of them publicly. But each of them, I tried to learn from them, and anytime there was an opportunity, I tried to have a genuine apology. And that apology meaning I watched or saw or heard what I did. I realized that's really not who I am or what I want to be, and I'm going to try to get better. My next time, I will react better in that situation. So that was refreshing to see the Kevin Durant that I used to know come from in the basement, tweeting and everything, and giving me a real perspective and good insight. And we don't need to see this. We don't need to see this.
Do you think his behavior will change?
Well, I can just take him on his word. I like listening to interviews. As an athlete, a lot of times I get a lot from the interviews. That right there was a guy who saw himself right after the game. He was like, wow, I see why the ref was coming after me. Mm-hmm. Man, I was acting like a jerk. Yeah, I expect him to be better. Because he said so.
I hope what he said is genuine, and I hope he does adjust accordingly. Because
obviously you don't believe him.
No.
Or you just believe there's some doubt there, or what?
I have a healthy level of skepticism. Because you mentioning that Kevin Durant from Oklahoma City, it's been a long time since we've seen him. And there have been a lot of exit ramps that he has passed where he could have decided, I'm going to go back to that, and chosen against it. He could have decided after his first, second, or third ejection this year. He could have decided it after the embarrassment about the fake Twitter accounts. There are plenty of times he could have said, man, what am I doing? Now, it is, as Cece would say, it is never the wrong time to do the right thing.
Yes.
So if this is the time, I welcome it. You guys know how much I love the NBA, how much I love basketball, and how important I think it is for the faces of the league to conduct themselves accordingly. It's why I got upset when Steph threw his mouth guard at the ref. It's why I haven't liked how Durant's been carrying himself this year. So I hope this is a moment where he's like, man, I can get back. I can still be just as good at hoop and be back to the guy who was in OKC. I just don't know who the real guy is, though. That's my issue. I don't know what is the genuine Kevin Durant because we now have a lot of data on both sides of it. And my fear is, because Cece, you've talked about that KD's not a natural leader. Great basketball player, great scorer, all these things. But that he is not a guy that's just that natural leader personality. My fear is that he is starting to mimic some of the traits of the leader of the team, Draymond Green. The only two guys in the league with double-digit technicals are Draymond and Kevin Durant. Draymond says last week they should fire every single ref in the league. Durant follows that up this week by saying, this ref's out to get me. So I hope that Durant breaks off from that. Because at least with Draymond, it's genuine. That is who Draymond is. But I don't know what the genuine KD is. So I hope that we don't look back on that interview and say it was, that was just a moment that he said he was going to change where he didn't. Because I would like to enjoy the parts of Kevin Durant that aren't just watching him play hoop, like I said yesterday.
Yes, but like Kevin said, I realize he's human, and I realize all these athletes are human. I realized when LeBron disappeared in the Dallas series, I wasn't going to stop liking him because of that. There have been other guys. Steph, when he threw his mouthpiece, there was things I didn't like. Kobe did things that I didn't like, but I didn't throw them out like they were trash. I look at the behavior. I accept them as human beings. I don't expect athletes to be perfect. So for me, being let down by their overall behavior, that's hard for me to do. I don't necessarily expect that. I expect them to make mistakes, especially when you're living in the public eye. It's hard to be on and be right every day.
There's a difference between making mistakes and bad behavior. I mean, Tiger Woods made a pretty bad mistake, and we all kind of rallied around him to come back. I mean, there are athletes that have made one or two big blunders and have come back. I wonder, though, I mean, there's a pattern of behavior here from Kevin Durant, if this is something that we will actually see, or this is another way for him in the spotlight to do something. Plus, it takes 80% of what our show content is out if all of a sudden he becomes a nice guy. Listen, really, it's about us.
Cece, I agree with you that I'm not going to, it's not like if KD gets one more technical this year and be like, see, he was lying. But we are going to be able to tell if he continues the Golden State version of Kevin Durant, who he's been the last 18 months, or gets back to the Oklahoma City version. And by the way, he can do whatever he wants, but I think it fairly can affect how people view him.
I think that Durant will always be in a lot of people's mind, just like LeBron. When LeBron left Cleveland, there were a lot of people that hated LeBron for no reason.
But did they come back?
When KD left, some of them did, because he went back to Cleveland and won. When KD left, a lot of people don't like KD because he joined Golden State, and that will continue regardless of what KD's behavior is.